Chapter 736. As Tang Xiu looked around, his killing intent instantly soared. 5 lightning-fast figures were approaching them from the edge of the woods a kilometer away, as though they were sharp arrows. In just a few breaths, they had already arrived in front of them. Mr. Tang. Basil's ice-cold eyes fell on Tang Xiu, but his heart was full of annoyance. After 2 days of surveillance, the members of Spectre's squad under his control were still unable to poison Tang Xiu's food even though they had sneaked into the Grand Hyatt Hotel. It was because Tang Xiu hadn't eaten or drunk anything in the past 2 days. Tang Xiu observed the 4 vampires behind Basil and instantly recognized them. They were the ones who chased Jin Shi and the others 2 days ago and were forced to retreat by his sword. Now, it seemed that their injuries had actually healed. Are you also members of the Stygian Club? Basil's every movement was noble and elegant. His slender and fair fingers fiddled with the metal ball in his hand as he nodded and said, "We're the subordinates of Sir Keith Moore of the Stygian Club. The previous assassin was too rude to Mr. Tang, so we've already killed the werewolf who escaped. Mr. Tang, our lord wants to see you. I hope you can give us face and come with us. He wants me to go with him just because he wants to see me, huh?" Tang Xiu sneered. How dare he be so arrogant in our Chinese territory? He's really asking to be taught a lesson. You can go now. Tell that guy to come here if he wants to see me. I can see him if I'm in a good mood. Basil's fingers fiddling with the metal ball instantly stopped. Killing intent flashed in his ice-cold eyes as he coldly said, "Mr. Tang, I know you're all Eastern cultivators. But I've seen the strength of your men before. They can't even beat my Spectre squad. You do have some skills, but I'm afraid it's not enough to look at me. So, please come with us if you don't want us to drink the blood of you and your men." Are you threatening me? Tang Xiu sneered and said, "I'll replace Dan Dan and arrange the 10 direction sword array. I'll deal with this brat myself if he dares to move." Yes. Mo, Jin Shi, and the others stepped forward one after another. The flying swords hovering around them instantly shot out. Basil's eyes were filled with disdain as he retreated 100 meters in an instant. As for the 4 vampires, they licked their lips and laughed maniacally. As the long blades on their backs were unsheathed, the 4 divine weapons of the Blood Clan, the dark magic blade, emitted a dark glow. A loser. A vampire earl sneered. He spread his wings and dashed in front of Mo. He raised his sword and slashed at Mo. Set up the formation. Mo didn't panic in the face of danger. With a loud shout, the flying sword instantly entangled with the other 9 flying swords. Mo's figure disappeared in a flash and soared into the sky with Jin Shi and the others. They stepped on the void, and their figures became dreamy and illusory, drifting erratically. Killing body drinking blood. The 4 vampires soared into the sky. Their strength was faintly stronger than Jin Shi and the others, so the 4 dark magic blades slashed through the sky in an attempt to kill the 10 people. Basil, who stood 100 meters away, revealed a smile in his eyes. 2 days ago, his 4 Spectre subordinates were able to chase and beat up Tang Xiu's men. But now, in his opinion, it was Tang Xiu's men who would eventually be killed. Even if one of them was replaced, the outcome was already doomed. He couldn't understand it. Why was Tang Xiu so stupid? Didn't he see the miserable appearance of his subordinates in the battle 2 days ago? A kilometer away. More than a dozen men and women hiding in the woods on the other side could clearly see the beginning of the battle. Shu was clenching a dagger, but his face was full of excitement. "Big brother Shu, it seems we were right not to act immediately. Now that Basil has led his Spectre team to attack, we can just sit back and reap the benefits," whispered a cute girl in a black leather coat with a smile on her face. "You're right." Shu nodded and smilingly said. "No matter who wins and who loses, both sides will end up with a lose-lose situation. We'll be the last one to appear, and we can easily get rid of them all. Hee, the War Wisdom Elder will give us a lot of rewards for our contribution. I can't wait to see both of them suffer a lose-lose situation." The girl giggled. But who do you think will win, Big Brother Shu? It's Basil's team, of course, said Shu. Haven't you noticed? Basil's spectre companion, Ality, hasn't appeared yet. You must know that Ality's strength is even stronger than Basil. The smile on the girl's face receded like a receding tide. Her eyes were filled with hatred as she said, Ality, that damned vampire bastard. He was the one who captured me and imprisoned me in the blood pool for 14 years. He destroyed my metal ability and killed my elder sister. Today, I'm going to kill him with my own hands and burn his soul with the hellfire. Shu grabbed the girl's arm and whispered, don't release your aura, else they will sense it. All right. The girl suppressed her hatred and nodded heavily. Near the mountain shrouded in clouds and mist, 10 hazy silhouettes flickered constantly. 10 flying swords transformed into thousands of sword shadows, layer upon layer like a blooming lotus of sword light. When the 4 devil saber shadows slashed down, the lotus of sword light instantly broke away from them and collided with the saber light. Bam! 2 surging auras instantly erupted with a deafening roar. As the lotus of swords shattered, the 4 demonic blades also became very fragile. Yet, the blades were still spreading upward. The collision showed that the 4 vampires had the upper hand. However, the situation reversed 360 degrees in the blink of an eye. Another wave of lotus of swords separated and directly collided with the demonic blade's lights. Watch out! The 4 vampires' complexions slightly changed. They twisted their bodies in a strange manner and abruptly moved several meters in the air, dodging the lotus of swords that continued to rush down after the demonic blade's lights dissipated. Fall! Mo roared. The decagon sword array, which had been completely formed, instantly fell down and enveloped the 4 vampires. One after another, lotus of swords appeared out of thin air and floated toward the 4 vampire counts. Damn it! What the hell is this? One of the vampire counts smashed 2 lotus of swords, but more lotus flowers stained his body. Blood splattered all over his body as a ghastly wound appeared on his body. The other 3 vampires also encountered the same problem. As the number of lotus flowers increased, more and more wounds appeared on their bodies. Even their flapping wings were wounded and their speed slowed down a lot in just a dozen seconds. Joint attack! One of the vampires roared and instantly gathered with the other 3 vampires. The dark magic blade in their hands crazily slashed out and smashed hundreds of lotus swords in one breath. You're courting death. Mo all coldly snorted and instantly dashed to the front of a vampire. His flying sword pierced the vampire's chest, and he kicked the vampire away with his foot. The next moment, Jinshi's figure also instantly appeared. His flying sword pierced a vampire's throat and directly penetrated it as his palm slapped the vampire's forehead. Shueisha also. Puff, 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 amidst the flashing figures of the 10 people, the 3-dimensional sword array composed of lotus swords brought great damage to the 4 vampires again and again. Several of the wounds were absolutely fatal to the 4 vampires. Obliterate. Mo Alla's group of 10 finally stopped attacking and instantly grabbed their respective flying swords. The moment they surrounded the 4 vampires, they slashed down lightning fast. Arjig, shrill screams came from the mouths of the 4 vampires. 2 of the vampire counts were even dismembered by the sword light at this moment. Pieces of minced flesh fell to the ground, and blood splattered like rain. As for the other 2 vampire counts, one of them had his heart core shattered, and his body was drenched in blood as he fell to the ground. He had completely lost his breath. Only the other vampire count fell to the ground, barely breathing, and sent up layers of dust. How is this possible? Basil was stunned by the tragic battle situation and was even more shocked by the result of the fight. He was confident that his 4 subordinates could kill all of Tan Xiu's men. Who would have thought that the result would turn out like this? He was distressed. His heart ached so much that it was bleeding. It must be noted that the 4 vampire counts under his command were his most powerful subordinates and also the reason why he could have a higher status in the Stygian club. Otherwise, with just his own strength and the 2 companion brothers, he definitely wouldn't be valued as much as he was now. Whoosh! 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 Mo's group of 10 landed from the sky and neatly stood in front of Tan Xiu. Apart from being stained with the blood of the 4 vampires, they didn't suffer any injuries. Well done. Tan Xiu applauded. Vampire counts are just so-so. Basil flashed and dashed to the side of the only surviving subordinate who was riddled with scars. He felt a bit better after checking the man's injuries. Although the man's injuries were severe, his heart core was not shattered and there was still hope for him to survive. At this moment, Tang Xiu instantly appeared behind Mo's group of 10. As he unsheathed his long sword, an earth-shattering power instantly burst out and fiercely slashed toward Basil and the injured vampire count. After absorbing the energy of heaven and earth, the 100-meter-long sword shadow became even more powerful. With just one strike, Basil's complexion crazily changed. His figure instantly disappeared 100 meters away, whereas the subordinate he couldn't save in time was slashed into 2 halves. Despite escaping fast enough, Basil's back was hit by the sword energy, leaving several bloody wounds that looked hideous and terrible. Buzz, a hazy shadow swept past Tang Xiu's body. Tan Xiu's pupils shrunk. The invisible crisis made his hair stand up in an instant. Relying on his superhuman perception, he didn't have the time to release his spiritual sense and fiercely swept the sword in his hand to the left. Chapter 737. The 2 forces collided invisibly, causing Tan Xiu's body to fly tens of meters sideways before he staggered and stabilized himself. In another direction, a vampire dressed in a black knight suit revealed himself. Even his arm was badly mutilated by the sword aura from the collision just now. So strong. Aladdin's wings were splashed by the sword energy and the pain nearly suffocated him. After flying backward for tens of meters, he immediately fled far away. He wouldn't have such a feeling if it was a frontal confrontation. He just launched a sneak attack and Tan Xiu's counterattack didn't even use his full strength. Aladdin, how is it? Basil flew to Aladdin's side with a horrified expression. His heart twitched a few times when he saw the man's badly mutilated arm. Aladdin shot a deep look at Tan Xiu's direction and bitterly said, "That guy's not human at all. He's way too powerful. That sword strike of his is almost comparable to Sir Keith Moore's. Let's retreat. I'm afraid only Sir Keith Moore can defeat him." Basil was full of unwillingness, yet he couldn't refute Aladdin's words. He knew that Aladdin was telling the truth. Even if he and Aladdin joined forces, they wouldn't be that guy's match. Let's go. The 2 figures didn't stay and instantly bolted in the direction they came from. In the mountain forest a kilometer away. Su was dumbfounded as he watched the scene ahead. He never dreamed that such an ending would happen. Just a moment ago, he vowed that the Stygian Club Spectre team would win. But in just a short time, the 4 vampires of the Spectre team were slaughtered. Even the Spectre team's leader, Basil, was forced to retreat. Even Basil's companion, Aladdin, was defeated. It was just like an invisible slap on his face. Could it be that the strength of Eastern cultivators was really that strong? Su's throat was a bit dry. Such an ending made him at a loss. He had more than a dozen men with him. If he were to fight Basil's vampires, the odds of him winning or losing would only be 50-50. But now, even Basil's 4 men were beheaded, and even Basil and Aladdin had to flee in panic. Even if he brought his men there, he wouldn't be able to gain any advantage, right? What to do? Was he supposed to leave just like that? Were they really going to give up on the mission Lord Wujie had given them? The cute girl standing beside Si Wu clenched her fists tightly, and her eyes almost spat fire. She hadn't expected things to turn out like this. She hadn't expected that damned vampire Aladdin to run away so shamelessly. She wanted to kill Aladdin. She wanted nothing more than to grind his bones to dust. But now that he'd escaped, she couldn't do anything to him. Si Wu, who was in a dilemma, suddenly brightened his eyes. He keenly saw that Tan Xiu, who was surrounded by his men, spat out a mouthful of blood. What did this mean? This meant that Tan Xiu was injured, and his injury was very serious. A chance. Siwoo made up his mind and said in a deep voice, Earthwalker, Moas, each of you bring 2 people to approach them from underground. You must injure some enemies when they are caught off guard. Shadowless. Follow behind King Kong and the rest and seize the opportunity to sneak an attack on Tan Xiu. Even if you can't kill him with 1 strike, you must injure him more severely. Hei Feng and the other 2, follow me. In the distance, Tan Xiu coughed out a mouthful of blood. His eyes casually glanced at the direction where Siwoo and the rest were hiding. With his vigilance, he had long known that there were other forces besides the Stygian Club's people following them. Tan Xiu had even speculated where they were hiding. He didn't suffer any injury, and he deliberately forced the blood out. Ality's sneak attack only made his arm numb and the blood in his body churn. In just a few seconds, he had already recovered to his original state. Watch out for the enemies. Tang Xiu took advantage of the moment when he was surrounded and quickly reminded them. Moo and the rest had long known that there were 2 groups of people following them. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's warning, they immediately realized that there was another group of people who had yet to appear. Feng Yang was a core expert of the Everlasting Feast Hall. The reason why he was chosen by Gu Yan was that he had a good aptitude and talent. On the other hand, he had a special ability. Except for a few people in the Everlasting Feast Hall who knew about this special ability, the rest were all dead. He could manipulate the earth element and use the earth attribute ability. Just as everyone saw figures dashing over from a kilometer away, Feng Yang's complexion suddenly changed and he hurriedly said, some people are coming from underground. They should be earth attribute ability users. Ability users? Heaven and Earth's favorite? Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. Although he had seen ability users before, he had never studied them in depth. In a flash, he quickly grabbed 4 array discs and threw them out at an extremely fast speed. As the array patterns were instantly shot out, the 4 divisions array was arranged by him in just 2 breaths. Feng Yang, do you know about Earth attribute ability users? Tan Xiu stared at the 10 people dashing over with dense killing intent flashing in his eyes. He could sense the killing intent coming from them and knew that they didn't come with good intentions. I'm an Earth attribute ability user, boss, said Feng Yang. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment and then looked at Feng Yang with a slightly surprised expression. He nodded and said, Feng Yang, you and Xue Sha cooperate with Feng Yang. I'm going to make those Earth attribute ability users stay here. Remember to capture them alive if you can. If you can't, just kill them. Feng Yang said with a confident smile, I guarantee that I'll complete the task. Don't be anxious. If they want to fight with us, they must enter the 4 divisions array, said Tan Xiu. You know the 4 divisions array, so you'll have the upper hand in fighting the enemy inside. Remember, escape immediately once you're injured. I don't want to see anyone die in battle. Moo and the others didn't speak. Their task was to kill the enemy. They couldn't decide whether they would live or die in battle. However, they felt very warm toward Boss Tan Xiu's words. After getting along with him for such a long time, they had figured out Tan Xiu's temperament. He was extremely ruthless to the enemy, but he was very protective of his own people. They felt that following such a boss was worth it even if they had to give their lives to him. Kill. Siwoo's special ability was electricity. As the word kill came out of his mouth, an electric current appeared out of thin air, like burning arrows shooting toward Tan Xiu and the others. At his side, a man and 2 women unleashed their respective special abilities. Crystal clear ice arrows, orange metal arrows, and churning fire dragons were shot toward Tang Xiu, Moo, and the rest in an overwhelming manner. 7 Stars Sword Array. Jean Shi roared and instantly formed the 7 Stars Sword Array with the other 6 people. Layers of overlapping sword images filled the world in front of them, carrying an overbearing and sharp aura as they collided with the electric current, ice arrows, metal arrows, and fire dragons. Boom, the 7 people's bodies shook violently. The 7 Stars Sword Array also became a bit messy, and the array was almost shattered. Siwoo's group of 4 spurted out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. The power of the 4 of them was scattered, while the power of Jin Shi's group of 7 was superimposed. Therefore, Si Wu's group of 4 suffered a small loss in the confrontation. Array, activate. A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he activated the 4 symbols array without hesitation. As Si Wu's group of 4 flew backward, their backs slammed heavily on the invisible energy shield. The 4 symbols array had a total of 4 characteristics: entrapment, attack, hallucination, and blessing. Unless one was proficient in the 4 symbols array, once one fell into it, not only would he suffer from 2 forms of attack, but he would also be trapped inside, unable to withdraw from the array. In addition, as long as the person controlling the 4 symbols array made a move, he could also bless his own people in the array. This kind of powerful 4 symbols array was very common in the immortal world, but it was completely different on Earth. Tan Xiu had studied the 4 symbols array on Earth. It was so crude that one could not bear to look at it. Usually, it was just 4 people joining forces and changing their positions to attack in a cycle. One advanced while the other retreated. It was endless, mysterious, and powerful. It was infinitely mysterious and powerful. In Tan Xiu's eyes, this situation in the eyes of modern people was extremely ridiculous. Boom! 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 The ground was suddenly torn open by the 6 figures. Earth arrows shot out, and weapons made of earth instantly attacked Feng Yang, Mo, and Xue Sha, who had revealed themselves. Moreover, there were even sharp wind blades, water swords, and fire snakes mixed within them, counterattack. Feng Yang's muscles trembled. As the fight for the thick earth began, the earth arrows suddenly stopped, and the weapons made of earth also stopped instantly. In an instant, the earth arrows changed direction, and the weapons made of earth also attacked the surroundings. The wind blades were destroyed, the water swords were scattered, and the fire snakes twisted and dissipated. Earthwalker, Mose, and the other 4 ability users, who rushed up from the ground, were instantly caught unprepared by this change. At this moment, Mo and Xue Sha brazenly attacked. Their flying swords were as fast as meteors, and while the 6 people were in a panic, they took away streaks of blood. Block it! Earthwalker and Mose roared at the same time. Suddenly, an earth wall blocked in front of the 2 people. The other 4 people were not so lucky. The defense they used in a hurry was penetrated in an instant. 2 flying swords pierced through their chests and swept across their necks. In 1/100th of a second, the 4 people were killed on the spot. Tan Xiu stood at the eye of the 4 symbols formation, looking at Su and the others who suddenly became like headless flies. A smile appeared on his face. In terms of strength and mysterious talent, these people were very powerful. If not for the 4 symbols formation, they would be even more difficult to deal with than the vampires. What a pity! They had found the wrong enemy this time. Tan Xiu's eyes swept over the 4 killed ability users, and he shouted in a deep voice, "I've changed my mind. These ability users are all enemies. Don't leave them alive. Kill them all." As he spoke, he formed a seal with both hands and quickly sent them out. He activated the attack ability of the 4 symbols formation at this moment. Chapter 738. The female ability user, who was controlling the 2 fire dragons to attack Jin Shi, instantly felt a bone-piercing chill spreading from the ground up along her legs. Just as she lowered her head, her eyes widened in disbelief. Ice? Her legs were actually sealed by ice. Moreover, the ice was spreading to her upper body at a terrifying speed. How was this possible? Weren't the enemies cultivators? Were there also ability users among cultivators? Puff, a sword light flashed past, and the female ability user's neck was instantly severed. Her vision kept tumbling, and she saw her own headless body spurting blood. Massacre. It was also a massacre. Apart from Si Wu and his 3 other companions, more than a dozen ability users were all killed in just 2 or 3 minutes. Among Tan Xiu's men, only Jin Shi had a cut on his arm, while the others didn't even lose a few hairs. What the hell is this place? Siwoo had already discovered the strange situation in the four symbols array. He desperately launched attacks and even triggered lightning to wreak havoc, but there was still no way to destroy everything. What he could find was that his men were constantly being killed, while he could only helplessly resist the attacks of others, powerless to do anything. Big Brother Siwoo, activate the blood curse. The cute girl staggered to avoid the attacks of several flying swords and took out a paper talisman from her bosom. In an instant, Siwoo and the other two also took out paper talismans. When the four of them used their abilities to activate the paper talismans, a rudimentary aura suddenly burst out and a strong bloody light fused together to form a bloody storm. At the eye of the array, Tan Shio's pupils suddenly shrank. After sensing the violent aura, he instantly used the four symbols array to roll up Mo, Ao and the others. As his body frantically retreated, everyone had already withdrawn from the four symbols array. Even when Tan Shio retreated, he suddenly felt the surroundings of the four symbols array crack like glass, and then it was shattered by the impact of the bloody storm. Puff! Four figures rushed out of the broken four symbols array, but at the moment they sprinted, they simultaneously opened their mouths and spurted out a bloody mist. Immediately after, the four of them looked like frosted eggplants, their spirits dispirited as they fell to the ground 100 meters away. Tan Shio looked at the place where the four beasts formation was set up with lingering fear. A huge pit with a radius of 100 meters had been blasted out, and it was more than 2 meters deep. He couldn't imagine how many of Mo, Ao and the others would have survived if he had retreated a few seconds later. This is the power of the blood curse. The killing intent in Tan Shio's eyes intensified. Like lightning, his figure rushed towards Siwoo and the other three. Just as the four of them jumped up, he brandished his long sword and ruthlessly slashed at them. Boom! The four of them hastily set up their defenses, but they crumbled under the might of the sword. Moreover, the four of them were sent flying tens of meters away by the monstrous sword chi before crashing into the ground once again. This time, except for Siwoo, who was struggling to get up, the other three had already fainted. Pooh! Puff! Pft! The sword light flashed, and the heads of the three fainted paranormals were separated from their bodies. Siwoo, on the other hand, was silently slashed into two halves by Feng Yang, who drilled out of the soil. The dust had settled. Tan Shio looked at the aftermath of the battle, as well as Mo, Ao and the others who were sprinting over. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "We didn't even figure out the identity of this group of enemies, yet we killed them all. That's really interesting. Feng Yang, stay here. The rest will immediately clean up the mess." Feng Yang came to Tan Shio's side. He rolled his eyes and whispered, "Do you want to set up a trap, boss?" "What do you mean?" asked Tan Shio, confused. "Let's kill all these people. There must be someone more powerful behind them," said Feng Yang. "If we set up the scene, we can make them mistakenly think that it's the Stygian Club's people who did it. Perhaps, a war will break out between these two forces." Tan Shio raised his hand to touch his chin and thoughtfully said, "You mean, framing them?" "That's right, framing them." Feng Yang nodded. "The Stygian Club can't get along with us, so we'll give them one more enemy. The people we killed were all adepts. If I also use my ability and leave some clues, then we'll throw the vampires' corpses there. I believe the people behind these ability users will definitely target the Stygian Club." Tan Shio's eyes lit up as he smilingly said, "It seems that my men are indeed talented. Feng Yang, your suggestion is good. Let's do it like that." "Do you have any instructions for me to stay here, boss?" asked Feng Yang. "Let's not talk about it for the time being." Tan Shio waved his hand and said, "You and the others will arrange it first. We'll enter the mountain half an hour later." Half an hour later. After everything was arranged properly, Tan Shio led everyone to the place shrouded in white mist. He released his spiritual sense, yet it couldn't penetrate the white mist. It was as though the white mist in front of him had a viscous substance that strongly obstructed his spiritual sense. "Boss, are you going to break this array?" Mo Ao, who was at Tan Shio's side, asked with a curious expression. Tan Xiu shook his head and took out a piece of paper from his interspatial ring. He quickly engraved the runes on it and then folded it into a kite. The moment he loosened it, the kite seemed to have its own intelligence and flew into the white mist. Tan Xiu then led Mo Ao and the others to follow it and entered the white mist. This is a guide kite. As cultivators, you need some spells and divine abilities. You have cultivation, but you don't have the ability to cast spells and divine abilities. You'll be at a disadvantage once you encounter other cultivators in the future. I'll slowly teach you some spells and divine abilities when we return to Demonic City. Understood. Mo Ao and the others looked happy and respectfully replied. It was a guide kite. It was a small spell that was easy to cast. It didn't have much effect, but it could move forward in a straight line according to the master's intention. If one followed it into the mist, they wouldn't lose their way inside. As their footsteps continued to move forward, they went about 100 meters deep inside and couldn't even see their own fingers. Furthermore, a special air pressure was blocking them, preventing Jin Shi and the others from going any further. The pressure is too much, boss. We can't bear it, said Jin Shi in a deep voice. With his keen eyesight, Tang Xiu was able to clearly see everyone's faces. He found that their faces were pale and obviously strenuous. He immediately halted his pace and released a huge aura from his body to contend with the pressure. Puff! Tan Xiu's body trembled and he retreated a dozen steps in an instant before he staggered and stabilized his body. However, he still coughed up a mouthful of blood. Just as he released his aura to contend with the pressure, a vast ocean-like power whizzed over and instantly crushed his aura. Are you alright, boss? Mo Ao and the others retreated one after another and surrounded Tan Xiu with worried faces. Tan Xiu raised his hand to wipe off the blood on his lips. He shook his head and forced a smile. I'm fine. I was just careless just now. I didn't expect this array to be so powerful that the pressure it emits can injure me. However, I'd figured out the principle of this array, so it'll be easy to crack it. You can crack it? Asked Mo Ao with a pleasantly surprised expression. I can crack it, but I can't, said Tan Xiu. We don't know what's inside this array, so there may be some unexpected changes if we crack it rashly. Therefore, you must follow behind me and pay attention to my footsteps. You can avoid the pressure in the white mist as long as you follow my footsteps. Yishir-san suddenly asked, we haven't seen you comprehend the mysteries of this array, boss. How did you comprehend it? Tan Xiu glanced at him and smilingly asked, do you want to learn something about arrays? Yeah, I do, said Yishir-san with a dry smile. I'll write a book about arrays after we return to Shanghai. Tan Xiu nodded and said, I'll teach you some things when the time comes. As a matter of fact, I've been secretly observing the situation inside and analyzing the mysteries of this array all the way here. I just resisted the pressure in the white mist and peeked at the last part that I couldn't understand. The result was out of my expectation and I got a bit injured. However, I've already peeked at the final profundity, so I can crack it if I want to. Yishir-san suddenly understood and said with admiration, you're really amazing, boss. Don't flatter me, boss. Tan Xiu smilingly scolded him. You may become an array grandmaster as long as you work hard in the future. Yeah. Yishir-san nodded with expectation. Tan Xiu then retrieved the kite again. Under its lead, the group passed through the white mist for more than 600 meters and finally reached the foot of the mountain. It's so beautiful. Even these people who had killed people like Scything Flax couldn't help but be attracted by the beautiful scenery at first glance. The mist inside was very light, just like a fairyland with immortal energy lingering around it. The flowers were beautiful, the trees were full of vitality, the beasts were docile, and the beautiful scenery was hazy. What surprised everyone the most was that there was a gurgling river flowing upstream toward the mountainside. This scene defied gravity, as well as the colorful fishes that jumped out of the water from time to time, was an eye-opener for everyone. There were many antique and small bridges on the river, each of which had a different shape. Some were arched, some were straight, some were meandering, and some were even half-moon-shaped. Let's go up the mountain. Tan Xiu strode forward and quickly walked up. When he crossed the bridge and stepped on the ground, an invisible force pressed down on him. Despite his formidable strength, he was still shaken by the pressure. Be careful. There's something strange going on. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and said without looking back. At the same time, he resolutely strode forward and walked inside again. With every step he took, he felt the pressure increase and each step was more strenuous than the previous one. Just like that, Tan Xiu led everyone forward. Chapter 739. As the saying goes, the more beautiful the appearance, the more extreme the danger lurks. Just like this picturesque mountain forest, which seemed to be full of flowers and shady trees, the misty white mist added a bit of immortal aura. But Tan Xiu and the others stepped on the bridge and walked less than 100 meters before they halted their footsteps as if they were facing a formidable enemy. A white pigeon. That's right. It was a white pigeon, but its physique was dozens of times bigger than an ordinary white pigeon. It was not inferior even to a bull. It strolled lazily among the flowers and grasses. Even when it noticed the arrival of Tan Xiu and the others, it just glanced at them casually and then spat out a flame. The moment the blue flame touched the flowers and grasses, they were instantly burned to ashes. When it fell to the ground, a football-sized stone was touched by the flame and turned into charred ashes that drifted away with the wind. This monster, Shueisha was very courageous, but he was still startled by the scene in front of him. Tan Xiu took a deep look at the white pigeon before his eyes slowly moved around. A few seconds later, he found an ant climbing on a towering ancient tree. The ant was the size of an adult's fist. It was tens of meters away, and even its claws could be seen clearly. Over there, Mo suddenly whispered. Tan Xiu looked in the direction of his finger and his eyes couldn't help but twitch a few times. A hedgehog drilled out of the bushes 40 to 50 meters away. The hedgehog's physique was even bigger than the white pigeon that was as strong as a bull. The spikes all over its body swayed in an extremely rhythmic manner. Its pointed mouth and nostrils exhaled white gas that was like a cold air that formed a layer of frost on the flowers and grasses below. Keep moving. Tan Xiu didn't sense any hostility from these wild beasts. Even when he deliberately approached White Pigeon, it only glanced at him lazily and then leisurely walked away as though it was taking a stroll in the park. Half an hour later. Although Tan Xiu was surprised, he was still calm. However, Mo, Jinshi, and the others were shocked by the wild beasts here. As they climbed up, they had already encountered hundreds of animals after climbing a quarter of the way up. Each animal was dozens or even hundreds of times larger than the animals outside. These animals all had their own unique characteristics, but they all had one thing in common, which was flight. Even a pig could walk in the void and fly slowly. Spirit Beast Paradise. Tan Xiu smiled as he recalled the spirit beasts he raised in the immortal world. These spirit beasts were all intelligent, and some of them were very intelligent. For example, a group of apes that were more than 2 meters tall. Even though they did not have any ill intentions towards the group, they still playfully threw fruits at the group a few times. Boss, we can't go up. Mo's forehead was dripping with sweat, and his face was flushed as he spoke with difficulty. Tan Xiu looked at Mo and then at the others. Finally, he helplessly said, "Stay here since you can't go up." Ah Wu, you're wearing an interspatial ring, so let everyone pick the precious herbs and store them in the interspatial ring. Also, take all the spirit fruits and ores. Understood. Mo slightly nodded. They had encountered too many precious herbs and spirit fruits along the way, many of which were even 1,000 years old. A large number of trees had all kinds of spirit fruits, and even a faint fruity aroma could be smelled from afar. As for the precious ores, there were a lot of them here. They could find several precious ores anywhere they looked, and any one of them could be sold for a high price outside. There was no way up this mountain. Tan Xiu stepped on the stone and jumped again and again, constantly climbing while withstanding the pressure. All the precious herbs, spirit fruits, and ores he encountered along the way were all stored in his interspatial ring. It took him 2 hours to reach the halfway point of the mountain. In these 2 hours, his harvest was more than the sum of all the herbs, spirit fruits, and precious ores he had obtained outside. I can't go up. Tan Xiu was a bit regretful. He could only look at the majestic palace at the top of the mountain, yet his footsteps were blocked by the huge pressure from above. Fortunately, his physique was far stronger than ordinary people, else he wouldn't even be able to reach the halfway point of the mountain. Tan Xiu wanted to use this huge pressure to stimulate his potential and temper his physique, but the darkening virus outside had yet to be completely solved, so he could only give up and plan to come back again later when he had the time. On the way down the mountain, Tan Xiu encountered several 7+ meters tall spirit beasts, one of which was a huge tiger. Just the aura it exuded made Tan Xiu's heart tremble. Fortunately, these spirit beasts didn't have any intention to attack and didn't even care about Tan Xiu's appearance. Whoosh, Tan Xiu jumped down from a boulder and appeared at Mo's side. He smiled and said, "Gather everyone. Let's leave this place. There are so many resources here, boss." "I think we should stay here for a while," said Mo quickly. "It's not easy for us to come here, so we should bring more back so that we can have more resources in the future. We don't need to rush since this mountain can't run away." Tan Xiu smiled. "Let's solve the problems outside first, and then we can have a lot of spare time to look for cultivation resources. Don't worry. I'll call Xiaoxue after we go out and ask her to bring some people here. It's me who's afraid of being poor. Please don't laugh at me, boss." Mo suddenly understood and said with a smile. Tan Xiu just smiled and didn't say anything, yet he was well aware of Mo's mentality. Speaking of which, the Everlasting Feast Hall indeed didn't have many resources. Although they had been spending a lot of money recently to buy a lot of medicinal herbs, precious ores, and other cultivation materials through various channels, the Everlasting Feast Hall had a large number of people and a large number of children that needed to be trained. Hence, the amount of resources allocated to each person was pitifully small. Quickly, Tan Xiu and the rest came to the foot of the mountain and smoothly got out of the white mist-shrouded area. Everyone boarded the vehicles and directly left. After traveling for more than half an hour, the 4 SUVs directly headed toward Twin Brook City after they found that no one was following them. Taking advantage of this time, Tan Xiu ate a red fruit. As the energy contained in the red fruit blended into his body, the faint feeling of hunger completely disappeared. Furthermore, he gradually fell asleep since he hadn't slept for 2 or 3 days. Creak! The sudden breaking sound awakened Tan Xiu from his sleep, and the inertia nearly caused him to hit the chair in front of him. With a frown, Tan Xiu looked ahead and asked, "What's the matter?" Mo turned his head and said, "There are dead bodies on the roadside, boss." "A lot of them." Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. After he opened the door and got off, he immediately saw dozens of corpses on both sides of the road. Some of the corpses had even rotted, and some bugs were buzzing around them. "They're not killed, but infected by the darkening virus?" Anger rose inside Tan Xiu's heart. The Stygian Club's members were the culprits of the darkening virus. He got the news a few days ago that hundreds of people had died from the darkening virus. However, he didn't see any dead bodies, so his anger was not strong. At this moment, if the Stygian Club's members were here, he couldn't wait to use all means to exterminate those damn executioners. "Collect their corpses and bury them," Tan Xiu ordered and turned back to the car. He took out a cigarette, lit it up, and took 2 deep puffs. He wanted to call Gu Xiaoxue, but found that there was no signal on his mobile phone. After thinking about it, he called Mo. It was because Division Commander Yang had given them some communicators when they came out of the Mist Source Island garrison base. All of them were stored in Mo's interspatial ring. Using the communicator, Tan Xiu dialed Gu Xiaoxue's cell number and said, "Xiaoxue, I'll send you the coordinates later. Bring some of our people who are proficient in medicinal herbs and ores. We found a treasure mountain with a lot of precious medicinal herbs and ores. Understood, Grand Master. Gu Xiaoxue replied. Tan Xiu thought for a while and asked, how is Yan, now? Master still stays inside the exquisite pagoda to recuperate and only comes out once in a while, said Gu Xiaoxue. However, Master's injury is healing very fast and is expected to be completely healed within 2 years. That's good. Tell her to stay in the everlasting feast hall. I'm now carrying out a very important task outside. I can't tell when I can deal with it for the time being, said Tan Xiu. You'll understand the situation here when you bring some people here. Tell Yan, that I'll go directly to Jingmen Island after I'm done with the things here. Understood. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu smoked 2 more cigarettes in a row. Mo and the others buried dozens of corpses. The place was in the middle of nowhere, and the surrounding environment was terribly quiet. However, not long after the car started, the 2 cars in front of them roared over. The 2 cars were driving extremely fast, reaching a speed of almost 180 kilometers per hour. When they saw the 4 SUVs, they didn't even think of slowing down. Instead, when the deafening metal music got closer and closer, they sped up a lot. Arrogant. Crazy. The most shocking thing was that there was a person tied with a rope on the roof of the car in the front. The person looked like a child. Stop them. A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he shouted in a deep voice. Immediately, he turned the steering wheel and immediately slowed down after moving to the side, moving side by side with the SUVs behind. As the window rolled down, he signaled the car driven by Yishirsan to stop. Screech, the 2 cars 100 meters away screeched to a halt and stopped only a dozen meters away from Tan Xiu's SUV. At this moment, Tan Xiu could clearly see that the person tied on the roof of the car was a teenage girl. The little girl's clothes were ragged and bloodstained. She's still alive. Tan Xiu's pupils suddenly shrunk. He instantly opened the door and went out. Seeing 7 or 8 burly men jump out of the 2 cars and walk toward him while cursing and swearing, a wave of hostility crazily rose inside his heart. Chapter 740. Tang Xiu looked at the dying little girl on the roof. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that these damned bastards would be so cruel to tie a living child on the roof of the car at a speed of 180 kilometers per hour. If the rope were to loosen halfway and the little girl was thrown out, she would definitely be smashed into pieces and turned into meat paste. Animals. Tan Xiu looked at these people as if he was looking at corpses. There was nothing but indifference. Hey, where the fuck did you come from? Fuck you. Are you deliberately blocking the road? Don't you know who we are? The big man in the lead quickly pulled out a knife from his waist and pointed it at Tang Xiu as he scolded angrily. Tan Xiu snorted coldly and raised his hand to stop Mo and the others who followed behind him. He looked at the approaching big man and asked, "Who are you people?" The big man stopped 4 or 5 meters away from Tan Xiu and cursed, "We're your fucking father. We're Uncle Jinnan's. Why don't you ask around? Who in the entire Mist Source Island dares to block our little boss's car? Dahu, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and drive them to the side. Don't delay me from going to the power station. Beat them to death if they dare to talk back. Now is a good time. Even killing a few people is like killing a few ants. No one will care about it." A lazy voice came from behind the 7 or 8 big men. A young man with dyed red hair, earrings, and gaudy clothes walked over while yawning. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. His figure instantly dashed and appeared in front of the 7 or 8 big men in the blink of an eye. His violent fists bombarded their heads. Like a watermelon being hit, 7 or 8 heads were instantly smashed, and 7 or 8 corpses were kicked by Tan Xiu and flew more than 10 meters away. Ugh, the young man was stunned. His listless look disappeared and was replaced by a deep fear. He realized that he had made a mistake, which was that he seemed to have provoked a terrifying desperado. Furthermore, his subordinates were all top-notch experts who had practiced martial arts for more than 20 years. How could they be so easily killed by the other party? Tan Xiu reached out and grabbed the young man's neck, lifted him up, and asked coldly, "It's the father's fault for not teaching his son well. Tell me who you are." The young man was choked by the neck and his breathing had stopped. As his face continued to turn red, the strength of his body's struggle also began to increase. But his eyes kept blinking at Tan Xiu, as if telling Tan Xiu that he was willing to speak. "Pa!" The moment Tan Xiu released him, he slapped him to the ground and then stepped on the side of his face, fiercely saying, "Quick, who the hell made you without tightening their belts?" The young man was stepped on the ground by Tan Xiu. He coughed and then shouted, "Take your foot off me. I'm Miao Wenlei." "You bastard, my dad is the richest man on Mist Source Island, and my family is the most powerful family on Mist Source Island. You offended me, aren't you afraid that my dad will kill you?" "Miao Wenlei, this name is enough." Tan Xiu moved his foot and directly stepped on Miao Wenlei's neck. Then, he fiercely kicked him tens of meters away and hit a big tree. Only then did he ask with a gloomy face, "How long will it take to get to Twin Brook City?" "More than 3 hours, answered Moo. Tan Xiu nodded and came to the front of the car more than 10 meters away. After floating on the roof, Tan Xiu looked at the dying little girl who was not in a coma. He quickly cut the rope and carefully picked her up. This bunch of bastards. Tan Xiu found that the little girl had obviously been beaten up. Several of the bones in her small body were broken. The most important thing was that she had lost a lot of blood and was cold all over. As he injected his primal chaos force into the little girl's body and quickly protected her heart and arteries, Tan Xiu took out a holy healing pill, broke off 1/10 of it and fed it to the little girl. "Don't be afraid. I've cleaned up those bad guys. Just bear with it. I'll fix your bones. Just for a while. You'll be fine after a while." The little girl's eyes were lifeless and didn't have the slightest reaction. Even the injuries on her body couldn't bring her the slightest pain. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He knew that this little girl had suffered too much pain. Only after suffering for a long time would she become numb. At this moment, he didn't want to waste any more time. He quickly took off her coat and began to fix her bones. Due to the protection of his primal chaos force, Tan Xiu hardened his heart and put her broken bones back into place even though the process was very painful for the little girl. She screamed miserably. The effect of the holy healing pill was excellent. Even if it was only 1/10 of the pill, it was still able to heal the little girl's injuries at an alarming speed. Tan Xiu took off his coat and gently wrapped her. His figure flashed and appeared in front of the off-road vehicle. He handed the little girl to Moo and said in a deep voice, "Keep going. After arriving at Twin Brook City, inquire about the richest man in Mist Source Island. Also, which family does that Miao Wenlei guy belong to?" "Understood." Moo took the little girl and carefully carried her to the car, giving the driver's seat to Shui Sha. A few hours later, a city appeared in front of their eyes. The 4 cars continued to hurry and soon entered the city. The once bustling city was now lifeless. There were almost no cars on the wide road, and only a few pedestrians hurried past the roadside. The Tang Manor Martial School was located in Twin Brook City. After inquiring, the 4 cars quickly stopped at the entrance of the Tang Manor Martial School. To Tan Xiu's surprise, there were 2 young men holding electric flyswatters next to the stone lions outside the Tang Manor Martial School, playing with their mobile phones listlessly. "Who are you?" One of the young men looked up and immediately frowned when he saw Tan Xiu and Moo behind him. "I'm looking for Tang Han," said Tan Xiu. The young man looked at Tan Xiu with a surprised expression and suddenly asked, "You don't have anything that can create static electricity? Are you?" "That's right. We're not infected," said Tan Xiu. "How is that possible?" The young man was shocked. "Everyone in the entire Mist Source Island is infected. No, you're from the outside. And you're from foreign countries." Tan Xiu waved his hand to interrupt him and said, "We're from the mainland. If this is the Tang Manor Martial School, I think I've come to the right place. Please take us inside to find Tang Han." Our schoolmaster can't receive guests right now, said the young man hesitantly. I'm her younger brother, said Tan Xiu. The young man stared blankly for a moment before he rolled his eyes and said, Our boss is an orphan since childhood. How could she have a younger brother? Brother, you don't look like you're here to make trouble, so I advise you to leave. Although the people in our Tang Manor Martial School are infected, there are still a lot of people who can fight. You'll know whether I'm her younger brother or not after you report it, said Tan Xiu. I'll give you a few minutes to go and come back quickly. The young man hesitated for a moment and looked at the people behind Tan Xiu before he finally turned around and ran inside. Inside the Tang Manor Martial School, inside an antique study room, Tang Han was holding a book and quietly reading it. Her complexion was a bit pale and she picked up the electric fleecewater from time to time to turn on the switch to shock herself a few times. Schoolmaster, called the young man outside the study room. Tang Han looked up and said, The door isn't closed. Come inside and talk. The young man strode into the study room and said, Schoolmaster, there's a group of people outside, led by a young man who says he's your younger brother. I wanted to drive them away, but I found that the people he brought are all martial artists, so... Younger brother? Tang Han's expression slightly changed. She instantly got up from the sofa and said in a deep voice, Take me to see him. The young man looked suspicious, but he still nodded. He had just walked a few steps when he suddenly recalled something and said again, Schoolmaster, that guy who claims to be your younger brother said he came from the mainland. The most inconceivable thing is that he's not infected by the virus. Tang Han's pace instantly quickened upon hearing it. As she strode out of the martial school's door, her eyes fell on Tan Xiu's face. A complicated look flashed in her eyes, and she suddenly felt like crying. Ever since the darkening virus spread wantonly and infected the entire Mist Source Island, she had been looking forward to her family sending someone over. And at this moment, her family finally came, and it was her younger brother. Tan Xiu. Tang Han didn't have deep feelings for the Tangs, and she couldn't even treat her parents like family members. But since she received a message from her family 6 months ago, she suddenly found that there was another family member among them who suffered the same fate as her, and that was Tan Xiu. She had seen Tan Xiu's photos and information about Tan Xiu. She also knew a lot about what Tan Xiu had done in the past 6 months. There were very few people in this world who could make her admire them, but Tan Xiu made her admire him from the bottom of her heart, and she couldn't help but feel close to him. Tan Xiu. Tang Han's lips squirmed, and she quickly came in front of Tan Xiu, quietly looking at his handsome face. Tan Xiu also had an inexplicable sense of closeness and respect for Tang Han. Back then, she was sent away by her family at a young age, and the time she spent with them over the years could be counted on one hand. It could be said that she had sacrificed too much for the Tang family. There was no unfamiliarity or estrangement when they first met. Tan Xiu took 2 steps forward and hugged Tang Han in front of everyone's eyes. He whispered, Sister, you've worked hard. Tang Han's body trembled. Tan Xiu's soft voice hit the softest part of her heart, and 2 lines of tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't struggle and just let Tan Xiu hug her. She shook her head hard and bit her lower lip with her white teeth. He understands me. Tang Han's heart was touched and warm. At this moment, she felt closer to her younger brother, who had suffered the same fate as her. Chapter 741. In the study room filled with the fragrance of tea, Tan Xiu sat on the soft sofa and watched Tang Han busy making tea and serving snacks. A warm feeling rose inside him. The two of them didn't have much interaction outside, but they chatted happily after coming to the study room. How about this tea, little brother? Tang Han sat opposite Tan Xiu and said with a smile. Tan Xiu picked up the small teacup and gently took a sip. Then, he nodded and praised, a tea taster can enjoy the taste of tea to the fullest. Just a sip will leave a fragrant taste in your mouth. This tea is really good, sis. Tang Han's eyes lit up. She gave a thumbs up and praised, little brother, you're really worthy to be a top student of Shanghai University. I'll give you the rest of the best tea if you like it. Tan Xiu smiled and said, a gentleman doesn't take what others like, sis. I rarely have time to calm down and drink tea, so it'll be a waste even if you give it to me. I'll come to visit you when I have more time in the future. You can treat me to this tea then. Alright. Tang Han slightly smiled and took the electric fleecewater. She turned it on and touched it with her fingers. The static current drilled into her body and helped her suppress the darkening virus inside. Upon seeing this, Tan Xiu got up and came to Tang Han's front. Under her astonished eyes, he grabbed her wrist and felt her pulse. Half a minute later, Tan Xiu said, sis, send someone to get a bowl of water. Also, you've been running the Tang Manor Martial Arts School for so many years, so you should have some trusted subordinates. Find them too. What for? Tang Han was confused. To help you remove the toxin of the darkening virus, said Tan Xiu. What? Tang Han suddenly jumped up from the sofa and asked with a shocked face, little brother, you said you can treat infectious diseases? That's right. I can, said Tan Xiu. I know you're a young miracle-working doctor in the Chinese medicine circle, but I didn't expect you to be so amazing. You can even treat a horrible infectious disease like the darkening virus. Just wait for me. I'll immediately find someone. Tan Xiu stopped her and said with a bitter smile, sister, my method is very special, and the things I need are also different. You must never tell anyone that I can cure the darkening virus. Unless it's someone you trust the most, don't bring anyone here, and don't tell them. Tang Han asked in confusion, why? The medicine for treating infectious diseases is very special. Even if I refine it day and night, I'm afraid I won't be able to save everyone on Mist Source Island, said Tan Xiu. In addition, the price is too high. It's not a problem to save a small number of people, but if there are too many, we won't be able to save them even if we sell everything we have. Tang Han suddenly understood and said with a face full of regret, using static electricity to suppress the darkening virus is only treating the symptoms but not the root cause. Moreover, static electricity is very harmful to the human body. If we don't find a way to completely remove the darkening virus, I'm afraid. Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu is going all out to research the antidote, said Tan Xiu with a bitter smile. The country will also send a large number of medical experts. Although I'm also a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, I'm not a saint. The best steel should be used on the edge of the blade. I must first solve the problem of the safety of the people I care about. Alright. Feeling warm inside, Tang Han gently nodded and said, there are 12 people in the Tang Manor Martial School who are worthy of my trust. They are my loyal supporters and have made a lot of contributions to the Tang family. Further, I've trained an armed team of 206 people, all of whom are loyal and reliable. You see, isn't the number a bit too much? There's no problem with the number. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, hurry up and gather them. I'll immediately treat the others after you're treated. Alright. Tang Han went out and came back with a bowl of water shortly after. She watched Tan Xiu break a pill and threw half of it into the water. Following Tan Xiu's instruction, she took it and drank it all. A warm current surged inside her body like a tide, and the weakness brought by the darkening virus was alleviated at an astonishing speed. Although she couldn't see the situation inside her body, she could clearly feel the pain as if a needle was pricking every corner of her body after the comfortable feeling brought by the warm current. She could endure the pain. But the pain for a long time made her suffer unbearably. However, she believed that Tan Xiu wouldn't harm her, so after enduring it for more than half an hour, she couldn't bear the stench coming from her body and quickly rushed to the bathroom. Creak, the study's door was pushed open again. Tang Han, who had just taken a bath, rubbed her belly and came to Tang Xiu's front with a strange expression. Although she still felt a bit weak, she could clearly feel that this weakness was caused by the black substance excreted from her body, as well as the 6 times she had diarrhea. It was not caused by the darkening virus. Little brother, I think I'm cured. Tang Han's eyes sparkled as she said with a smile. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. The pill he used was the holy healing medicine he got from Ji Qimei. Although there weren't many holy healing medicines left, it was still a medicine taken by cultivators, so how could the darkening virus contend with its effect? As a matter of fact, Ji Qimei had followed Gu Yan, to Earth. If it weren't for her interspatial ring being destroyed in the space tide and losing all her belongings, she would have been able to refine immortal pills with her immortal tool cauldron if she used it to refine pills. Where are those people, big sis? Tan Xiu stood up and asked with a smile. Come with me, said Tang Han. They've been placed in the dormitory building of the martial arts field and should be gathered there now. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu took Tang Han with Mo Ao and the others as they came to the martial arts field of the Tang Manor Martial Arts School. At this moment, aside from the 206 core members of the martial arts school, there were also 12 confidants trained by Tang Han. These people were all real martial arts experts. Although none of them had reached the level of martial arts grandmaster, their strength was not to be underestimated. Water. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Tan Xiu took the water from Mo Ao and then put a half-holy healing medicine into the water. With a very serious expression, Tang Han said in a deep voice, "Everyone, some of you may know the one next to me, but some may not. Regardless of whether you know him or not, I need to tell you now that he's my cousin, Tan Xiu. He was ordered by the family to come here to solve the infectious disease problem. Do keep in mind that the medicine is extremely rare, so I can only give it to my closest confidants. Therefore, once you take the medicine, the infectious disease problem will be completely solved. You must never spread this matter out." Tang Han's trusted subordinates all revealed looks of pleasant surprise. They were troubled by the darkening virus, and in their hearts, they had already lost all hope. Although stimulating the body with static electricity could temporarily suppress the deterioration of the darkening virus, it was only a glimmer of hope. But now, they finally realized that the crisis could be resolved and their safety could be guaranteed. As the medicine that dissolved the holy healing medicine was taken by everyone, Tang Han immediately dismissed everyone. She was perfectly aware of the consequences of taking the medicine, so she naturally didn't want to see her subordinates embarrassed, let alone smell the stench. After returning to Tang Han's study room, Tan Xiu had just sat down when he asked, "Who's the richest and most powerful person in Mist Source Island? Is it someone surnamed Miao? Miao Hengfu?" Tang Han was surprised. "Why are you asking about him?" Tan Xiu's eyes gleamed with a cold light as he said, "It's the father's fault for not teaching his son well. His son, Miao Wenlei, is simply a beast. I killed Miao Wenlei and some of his thugs. Since I've done it, I must cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to avoid future troubles." Tang Han stared at Tan Xiu with a dumbfounded expression. After a long while, she forced a smile and said, "Little brother, you're really... Forget it. I've already killed him, so I must cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. In fact, it's not the father's fault for not teaching his son well. It's just a counterexample of, the father is a hero and the son is a hero. Miao Hengfu is ruthless and cunning. God knows how many people he has harmed over the years. However, he always does it cleanly every time. Even if the government wants to take action, they can't find any evidence. Besides, he also has people above him." Tan Xiu frowned and asked, "He has people above him? Who is it?" "Mu Jianhua of the Mu family in the imperial capital," answered Tang Han. "What?" exclaimed Tan Xiu. "What's wrong?" asked Tang Han, confused. "The Mu family may be quite powerful in the imperial capital, but I'm afraid it's much worse compared to our Tang family, no? You don't need to make such a fuss about it." Tan Xiu hesitated and forced a smile. "I won't make a fuss if it's just the Mu family. But the problem is... Mu Jianhua is my nominal future father-in-law." Tang Han was at a loss whether to cry or laugh. "You're really something, little brother. The dignified first beauty of the imperial capital, Mu Weining, was actually taken by you. But, you actually killed the son of the person who was under the protection of your future husband. I dare say that your future father-in-law will go all out against you if you kill Miao Hengfu. Tan Xiu was a bit helpless inwardly and forced a smile. It won't go that far, right? It won't go that far. Asked Tang Han with a smile. Mu Jianhua is just a good-for-nothing clansman in the eyes of the Mu family. Even if his father is the Mu family's patriarch, the position of the Mu family's patriarch will never be passed to him in the future. I presume you know something about your future father-in-law. That guy is simply... Let's put it this way. If you kill Miao Hengfu, it's tantamount to cutting off your father-in-law's biggest source of wealth. It's no wonder he won't go all out against you. No, that's not right. Tan Xiu frowned and said, if Mu Jianhua has a source of money like Miao Hengfu, how could he let his daughter give him money to plug the hole? Tang Han was surprised, but she immediately said, perhaps you've underestimated your future father-in-law's extravagance. Let's not talk about other things. Just 3 years ago, I heard that Mu Jianhua lost more than 600 million yuan in Las Vegas. Holy shit, Tan Xiu was startled by Mu Jianhua's extravagance. Chapter 742. On the south side of the mountain in the center of Mist Source Island, members of the Reston organization were stationed in the east of a village of about 2,000 residents. The leader of the group was the ruthless second-in-command, Jinlei Duomo. Jinlei Duomo's background was very mysterious. Apart from the boss of the Reston organization, the mysterious strongest person, no one else knew about her past. At the age of 12, Jinlei Duomo drifted to Mexico, grew up in a drug den, and lived in a criminal paradise. She was very strong. So strong that all the members of the Reston organization were secretly afraid of her name. Even some gangs that were stronger than the Reston organization did not dare to provoke them. It was not because of the mysterious boss, but because of Jinlei Duomo's existence. The East. This was the place that Jinlei Duomo dreamed of coming to, but for a whole 20 years, she had never stepped into the territory of Huaxia. This was because she remembered the warning of the woman who helped her live until the age of 12 and taught her magical martial arts, do not enter Huaxia with blood on your hands. This time, she finally made an exception and came to the east, but she believed that the existence of Mist Source Island was not considered Huaxia territory. On the one hand, she was instructed by the boss of the gang to come to Mist Source Island to seize the mineral resources and wealth. On the other hand, she still hoped to find traces of that woman here. Even if she could not see her, as long as she could find clues that she was still alive, that would be enough. Knock, knock, there was a knock on the door, and the voice of her trusted subordinate came from outside. Boss, we found traces of a battle near the White Fog area south of the mountain. It's very strange, there are no traces of firearms being used. It's like a battle scene caused by cold weapons. Pa, Jinlei Duomo instantly appeared at the door. As the door opened and closed in an instant, her confidant was already in the room. A scene caused by cold weapons? Jinlei Duomo asked with a cold face. Her subordinate felt a chill in his heart. Even though he knew that Jinlei Duomo was very powerful and had terrifying strength that far exceeded normal humans, he was still afraid to be caught in the room in an instant. Suppressing the fear, he braced himself and said, yes, very shocking traces of a battle. It's like a scene caused by a powerful beast, but according to our judgment, it's not a beast, so it can only be the work of a human. No, there are other mutant races. Be more specific, said Jinlei Duomo in a deep voice. After our investigation, we found traces left behind by the legendary vampires, and the scene caused by an adept. Jinla had already gone over and should be back soon. She might be able to bring back a more comprehensive survey result, the subordinate said. Jinlei Duomo's eyes flashed with a cold light. She had fought with vampires and metahumans before. She knew that both vampires and mutants possessed terrifying strength. Of course, she also had 2 arcanists under her, and Jinla was one of them. You go out first. After Jinla returns, tell her to come see me immediately. Yes. Night fell. Jinlei Duomo stood by the window on the 2nd floor with a solemn expression, looking northwest. That's the direction where the traces of battle were left near the white fog area in the south of the mountain, as reported by the subordinate. Suddenly, her expression changed slightly, and her figure instantly leaped out of the window. In the blink of an eye, she had already appeared in the vicinity of the village, which was a few hundred meters away. She looked at the 3 or 4 figures that were fleeing for their lives in a sorry state. Her body flickered and she appeared in front of them. What's going on? Zhenlei Duomo looked at her 4 subordinates, who were covered with wounds and looked terrible. Her eyes seemed to be able to spit out fire. But she still suppressed it and asked in a deep voice. Boss, it's the enemy. Our 10-man squad was patrolling nearby when we didn't expect to encounter a group of people. As a result, all 6 of our companions were killed by them, said one of the scarred middle-aged black men. Zhenlei Duomo's complexion changed and she asked, who are they? The young man in the lead claims to be the only son of Mist Source Island's richest man, Miao Hengfu. Miao Wenlei. He's very insolent and arrogant, and his men are very strong. They immediately opened fire at the slightest disagreement, said the middle-aged black man. Zhenlei Duomo's eyes turned cold and she said in a heavy tone, the richest man in Mist Source Island? Tell me, which direction are they and where they should be now? They're behind us, southwest of where we're fleeing. I don't know where they are now, but we had a fight a few kilometers away, and it's only been 10 minutes. They shouldn't be far from there. Go back, all of you. Zhenlei Duomo gave her orders and instantly ran southwest. She didn't use her ghost-like movement skills in front of her subordinates, but once she was out of their sight, she immediately soared into the air and stepped on the tree branches with the tips of her feet, shuttling through the air. In the southwest of the village, the terrain was quite high and the view was excellent. Near a towering ancient tree, 6 corpses were lying there, 2 of which were riddled with bullets. Bastard! Zhenlei Duomo's eyelids twitched a few times. She fiercely stomped the ground, and cracks instantly spread out like a spider web. She had a lot of subordinates, so it didn't matter if some of them died. But those she brought to Mist Source Island were almost all her trusted subordinates, and it was not easy to train them. But now, 6 of them died and 4 were seriously injured. Such a loss made her feel a bit distressed. Zhenlei Duomo clenched her fists and was about to use the communication device to contact her subordinates in the station. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed. She inadvertently found a row of words carved on the forehead of one of her subordinates, idiot, fuck your grandpa. Boom, Zhenlei Duomo turned around and fiercely punched the big tree next to her. The tree trunk that even 2 people couldn't wrap their arms around was broken by her punch and fell to the ground with a loud crash, splashing up a cloud of dust. Miao Wenlei. Miao Hengfu. Sometimes, wisdom was more terrifying than force. A few kilometers away, Yishir-san held an infrared high-powered telescope and stared at Zhenlei Duomo's angry expression. He just joked with Shueisha about whether Zhenlei Duomo would stomp her feet in anger when she came to the scene where her subordinates were killed. But the result was that Zhenlei Duomo just punched a towering ancient tree and knocked it down. She shouldn't be an ability user. She shouldn't be a vampire, either. Yishir-san and Zidane, who also held a telescope, spoke at the same time. After that, both of them fell into silence at the same time. After a long time, when Zhenlei Duomo's figure disappeared in the distance, Yishir-san said in a deep voice, "We must report this situation to boss. That woman is too powerful. Even we may not be able to compare with her. It'll be very troublesome if something goes wrong in the plan." Zidane, who had always been confident and cautious, nodded and said, "We may not know much about Miao Hengfu's strength, but as long as he's still an ordinary person, he's absolutely no match for Zhenlei Duomo. A powerhouse like him can exterminate a large number of ordinary people. Doesn't boss want to use the Reston Mafia to uproot the Miao family's forces?" said Yishir-san. "Alright, then. You report the woman's situation to boss, and we'll proceed with the next plan immediately." Understood. Wolfpack City. The Qingyuan group was located in the center of the city and occupied a large area. 5 four-story buildings formed a circle, surrounding a 3-story building in the middle. Between the 5 buildings and the 3-story building in the middle was a corridor in the air, just like 5 dragons holding a pearl. The top floor of the 3-story building was the private forbidden area of the Qingyuan Group's chairman, Miao Hengfu, where even the company's top executives had no right to enter. This was Miao Hengfu's place of leisure and entertainment. The interior was extraordinarily luxurious with all kinds of entertainment facilities. Even many of the Qingyuan Group's top executives were aware that there were at least 10 beautiful women on the 3rd floor, which was where Miao Hengfu's mistresses lived. Life must be enjoyed to the fullest, don't let the golden goblet be empty facing the moon. Miao Hengfu especially admired this line of the poem and even vividly expressed the word, enjoy to the fullest. He was comfortably nestled on the soft sofa, enjoying the massage of a beautiful woman and tasting the grapes handed to him by another beautiful woman from time to time. His expression was indescribably lazy. Ring, 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 the urgent ringtone of a cell phone suddenly sounded. Miao Hengfu didn't move. He didn't even lift his eyelids. Instead, it was the beautiful woman beside him who obediently took the phone and looked at the number on the screen. It's an unfamiliar number. Answer it. Miao Hengfu finally raised his eyelids and watched the beautiful woman pick up the phone. Just as he was about to speak, a hurried roar came from the other side. Save me, boss. Damned Reston Mafia. Ah. After the shrill scream, there was no more sound coming from the other side of the phone. Miao Hengfu's expression greatly changed. He abruptly jumped up from the sofa and went downstairs with a gloomy face. He walked to the office on the 2nd floor and was immediately followed by 2 of the company's top executives. Find out who this number belongs to. Got it. One of the executives memorized the number and quickly left the office. However, a minute or 2 later, he hurriedly came back and reported, I've found out, boss. It's the private number of a security guard in our company's security team. He's also one of the members you listed as the Flame Squad. Where is he now? Asked Miao Hengfu in a deep voice. I just asked around and the news I got is that, he went out with your son last night and hasn't returned yet, said the executive. Miao Hengfu's expression froze. Then, his pupils violently contracted and a horrified look burst out from his eyes. He immediately took the phone and dialed his son, Miao Wenlei's number, but no one answered. Something happened. Miao Hengfu's heart thumped and a bad premonition spontaneously rose in his heart. Chapter 743. He immediately shouted, find out Wenlei's whereabouts. His phone can still be reached. Contact the police and let them use communication equipment to locate Wenlei's private phone number. Also, immediately send people out to search for him. Remember, no matter what method you use, no matter what price you have to pay, you must find him in the shortest time possible. The senior executive hesitated and smiled bitterly. Boss, the situation is special now. All of us have been infected. I'm afraid it's unrealistic to send people to search for him on a large scale. I think we should get all the members of our security team ready to go. Once the police find the location of young Master Miao's phone number, our people will immediately rush over. Miao Hengfu suddenly woke up. It was a very special time now. The entire Mist Source Island was infected with the darkening virus. Even if they had found a way to temporarily suppress the virus, it would not solve the root cause. Now that the entire Mist Source Island was in a state of panic, it was indeed unrealistic to send people to search for his son on a large scale. Let's do as you say. However, send someone to the security team to understand the situation and ask who left with Wenlei. Ask if anyone knows where they went. Do it immediately. As the 2 senior executives of the company left, Miao Hengfu paced around the office with a gloomy face. He didn't believe that the company's security would ask for help for no reason. The members selected by him to join the Flame Squad were all people who had followed him to do some shameful things. They were also the thugs he had focused on training. Sure enough. Soon, the investigation results were sent to Miao Hengfu. A total of 7 people left with his son last night. All of them were members of the Flame Squad. Including his son, there were 8 people in total. After eating and drinking at the Big Billionaire Entertainment Club last night, they left this morning. Miao Hengfu looked at the road surveillance video sent by the traffic police. What made him furious was that his good-for-nothing son actually tied a little girl to the roof of the car, and then drove at an extremely fast speed along the road in the center of the city, in the direction of the mountain in the center. Guo Chang, take some people to look for him. Miao Hengfu called the leader of the Flame Squad, who was also his trusted thug. Tang Manor Martial Arts School. Tan Xiao had already received Bullet's report, and when he heard that Reston's Zhenlei Duomo was actually a master, his interest was immediately piqued. After all, Zidane and Yishir San were all cultivators, and they had already reached the foundation establishment stage. Even they were ashamed of their strength. Tan Xiao was curious about Zhenlei Duomo's identity. You want to go yourself? Tang Han asked hesitantly. Tan Xiao nodded and said, I'm indeed interested in seeing the situation there. After all, it was not normal for a foreign gangster to have such power. Sister, wait for my news at Tang Manor Martial Arts School. This time, I'm not just targeting Miao Hengfu and Reston's organization. I've also targeted 2 more powerful forces. As long as the plot goes according to my plan, many of the crises on Mist Source Island can be solved. I'll go with you. Tang Han said. Although I haven't reached the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm yet, I'm only a step away from it. Also, I'll bring a group of experts with me in case of emergencies. I know what you're thinking, sister. Tan Xiao waved his hand. But Grandpa sent me here, which proves that I have the ability to solve these problems. Don't worry. There are only a few experts on the entire Mist Source Island who can make me dread them. The reason why I use some schemes and tricks is that I'm too lazy to do it myself. Also, the Tang Manor Martial Arts School is the backup plan of our Tang family on Mist Source Island. If it's not necessary to be exposed, then keep a low profile and continue hiding. Tang Han hesitated for a moment before she finally nodded and said, all right then. But pay attention to your safety. As long as there's life, there's hope. Don't put yourself in danger. I know what I'm doing. Tan Xiao replied and then drove away from Tang Manor Martial Arts School alone. Late at night, he met up with Yishir San and Zidane in the mountain forest more than 10 kilometers north of Mixed Summit City. How come it's only you two? Where are the others? They all went to inquire about the news. We may have already laid out the layout, but we still need to pay attention to the plot, said Yishir San respectfully. We can adjust the plan or add fuel to the fire if any accident happens midway. I'm at ease with you handling the matter, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Anyways, what's the situation with that surnamed Miao? Zhang Ju is in charge of keeping an eye on them. He sent me the news 2 hours and 15 minutes ago, said Yishir San. Miao Hengfu's henchman, Guo Chang, has led dozens of Qingyuan Group security guards to rush to the place where we killed Miao Wenlei overnight. Black Bear also sent me the news. Be it Miao Wenlei's mobile phone or the other 7 people's mobile phones, all of them have been receiving calls. Black Bear picked up a mobile phone and only connected for 3 or 4 minutes, but it should be enough time. Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and asked, you mean, satellite positioning? Did someone from the Public Security Bureau or the Traffic Police get involved? Zidane has invaded the network and confirmed that the Traffic Police are involved. Yishir San nodded. The people from the Wolfpack City's Public Security Bureau have already gathered, but they suddenly disbanded for some unknown reason. Tan Xiao nodded and sneered, Miao Hengfu can become the richest local tycoon in Mist Source Island, so he must have a lot of connections. It's normal for him to be able to influence the Public Security Bureau. Just wait. We'll watch a good show. Boss, we may have dug a pit for the Stygian Club and those elementalists to jump, but we can't monitor them in secret. We can't adjust the plan in time if something goes wrong on both sides. Yishir San hesitated. Ao has found out that those elementalists belong to the world's largest organization, the Pyramid, said Tan Xiao with a smile. The Stygian Club and the Pyramid have always been fighting openly and covertly, with constant friction between them. This time, we're going to frame the Stygian Club for the deaths of those elementalists, so they will definitely tear off all pretense of cordiality. What I'm concerned about now is how bad the losses will be for both sides. On this night, more than a dozen foreign forces in the entire Mist Source Island were in a state of panic. The reason was that dozens of powerhouses from the Pyramid Organization had first attacked the Stygian Club station in Mist Source Island. 4 werewolves and a vampire viscount were silently killed and their corpses were taken away. Subsequently, more than a dozen other foreign forces also suffered sneak attacks, with 2 organizations suffering heavy losses. The traces left at the scene of the battle were either werewolf corpses or vampire body parts without exception. In short, all the spearheads pointed at the Stygian Club. Early in the morning, the first ray of sunlight rose from the east, illuminating the entire Mist Source Island. At the Qingyuan Group's HQ, Miao Hengfu received the news that Miao Wenlei and the 7 company security guards were all killed. Not only that, but the enemy also left an extremely arrogant slogan. Not only did they admit that it was the Reston organization, but they also left a slogan to destroy Miao Hengfu and the Qingyuan Group. Assemble. Miao Hengfu flew into a rage and ordered the security forces and his own private armed forces to assemble immediately. Even a batch of firearms that he had secretly bought had been distributed. However, dozens of cars rushed to the place where Miao Wenlei's body was dumped, led by Miao Hengfu himself. However, when the convoy just left the wolf pack city for a dozen kilometers, they were ambushed by dozens of armed forces. In just a few minutes, Miao Hengfu's men suffered heavy losses. A few kilometers away, Tan Xiao was holding a pair of binoculars as he watched the fierce battle taking place on the road at the foot of the mountain with a satisfied smile on his handsome face. The battle was fierce, but most of the people killed were Miao Hengfu's men, while Reston's men suffered minimal losses. She's here. Tan Xiao's expression suddenly changed. Through the binoculars, he clearly saw a woman carrying a long blade on her back instantly appearing in the convoy. She was like a grim reaper, reaping lives after the long blade was unsheathed. In just half a minute, the remaining 40 to 50 people were all killed, including Miao Hengfu. The show's over. Time to go. Tan Xiao put down the binoculars and handed it to Yishir-san beside him with a smile. Boss, you never miss anything. You can solve a lot of trouble with just a simple scheme. You're really amazing. Yishir-san smiled. Don't flatter me. Tan Xiao said with a smile. Just as he took a step forward, his expression suddenly changed, and a sharp light burst out from his eyes. Go back. He instantly unleashed the long sword in his dantian space, and a blade light that was tens of meters long slashed down the hillside like a dazzling waterfall. More than a dozen trees were split into pieces, and a long ditch that was tens of meters long and half a meter deep was left on the ground. Then, a lightning-like black shadow sprang out from the violent blade shadows. An enemy? Yishir-san and Zidane unleashed their flying swords at the same time, and their figures were as fast as lightning as they shot toward the black shadow. In just a few seconds, they had already appeared on both sides of the figure. Stop! Tan Xiao followed closely behind and shouted before Yishir-san and Zidane launched their attacks. That figure was Jinlei Duomo. When she killed dozens of people, she had already noticed that someone was hiding in the dark and watching them. She hadn't found the figure of the person who was watching them, but just as Tan Xiao and the other 2 left, she finally noticed something unusual. She didn't expect that she would be greeted by a thunderous sword strike. Who are you? Jinlei Duomo looked a bit embarrassed as she angrily shouted with a long saber in her hand. She was shocked because she would have been directly killed by that thunderous sword strike if she hadn't dodged fast enough. Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows. He had thought of several identities of Jinlei Duomo, but he never expected that she turned out to be a cultivator. Moreover, her cultivation was very high, and she was only a step away from the Golden Core stage. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, a foreign woman, especially the female leader of a foreign gang, turns out to be a cultivator. It's really inconceivable. Chapter 744. At this moment, Jinlei Duomo had already guessed Tan Xiao's identity. She was pleasantly surprised, but her expression was indescribably complicated. One of the reasons she came to Mist Source Island was to understand the situation of the mysterious eastern country's cultivators. It would be best if she could inquire about the woman who had raised and taught her. Do you know my identity? Zhenlei Duomo looked at Tan Xiu with vigilance and asked. You're the famous Mexican mafia's second-in-command, the rumored demoness with both wisdom and strength. How could I not know you? Tan Xiu said with a smile. It's just that I didn't expect to meet you on this Mist Source Island. It seems that there are many people who covet the resources of Huaxia. Since you know me, then please tell me who you are, said Zhenlei Duomo coldly. Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu said lightly. Zhenlei Duomo wasn't satisfied. A name meant nothing to her. What she wanted to know was Tan Xiu's identity. Moreover, she realized that this guy named Tan Xiu definitely didn't appear here by chance. You schemed against me? Tang Xiu let out a hollow laugh. He indeed schemed against Zhenlei Duomo, but Miao Wenlei and Miao Hengfu had long been dead. The dead could not tell the truth, so he naturally didn't want to admit it. Furthermore, he also felt a bit regretful. Miao Hengfu was strong in appearance but weak in reality. He didn't even have a martial arts grandmaster under him, so he couldn't bring any losses to the Reston Mafia. Otherwise, he could have killed two birds with one stone and solved more troubles. Zhenlei Duomo, I don't know what you mean by that. We just happened to pass by and didn't expect to see such a good show. However, I would like to ask you, who gave you the guts to kill a citizen of Huaxia in our territory? How could those trash kill so many of my men near my camp? Zhenlei Duomo angrily said. Do all the Chinese like to play the fool? Ring, 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 Tan Xiu's communicator suddenly rang. Under the angry gaze of Zhenlei Duomo, he answered the phone and said, What's the matter? Half a minute later, Tan Xiu's expression turned strange. He grunted and hung up the call. Then, he looked at Zhenlei Duomo with a faint smile and said, All right. I admit that I sent people to do this, but I did it out of goodwill. It was all for your own good, for the good of your Reston Mafia. Zhenlei Duomo angrily shouted, You killed my men and said it was for my own good? What nonsense are you talking about? If my guess is correct, you still don't know what happened in the village where you were stationed before, said Tan Xiu with a straight face. Similarly, I guess you haven't received the news about what happened to the dozen or so foreign forces last night. But what I can tell you is that using the lives of some ordinary people to help you and save the Reston organization from disaster, this is a kindness to you. In other words, I'm your savior. What is it? Zhenlei Duomo was stunned. She looked at the serious expression on Tan Xiu's face and couldn't wrap her head around it. Since he admitted that he was plotting against her, how did he suddenly become her savior? She had lost 6 of her men. Are you spouting nonsense? Or are you deliberately teasing me? Tan Xiu sneered. It seems that your Reston organization's intel is really bad. Let me tell you something. Last night, the third most dangerous organization in the world, the Stygian Club, attacked more than a dozen foreign forces. Some of the weaker forces were almost uprooted. The world's largest organization, Pyramid, launched a fierce counterattack against the Stygian Club. The other 2 forces that were stationed in the village at the same time as you also suffered a lot of losses. I picked your Reston organization and let you leave there temporarily to avoid being attacked, right? What? The Stygian Club? Zhenlei Duomo's expression drastically changed and a deep dread could be seen in her eyes. As a cultivator, she naturally knew some inside stories that ordinary people didn't know. But, how dare the Stygian Club? If my guess is correct, the foreign forces in the entire Mist Source Island have begun to secretly unite. Tan Xiu sneered. The Stygian Club is too ambitious, and it's like poking the hornet's nest this time. Next will be a life-and-death struggle between the various forces and the Stygian Club. But I pulled your Reston organization out of this mess. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Zhenlei Duomo felt that Tan Xiu was twisting words and forcing logic, but she couldn't refute him. If what he said was true, then she was really lucky. After all, the Stygian Club was a terrifying force that the Reston organization she belonged to couldn't be compared to. No. To be precise, even 100 Reston organizations couldn't compare to the Stygian Club's terrifying power. Zhenlei Duomo took a deep breath and slowly said, Mr. Tang, I haven't received any news about what you said yet. Since we're not enemies, I have no intention of becoming enemies with the Chinese cultivators. Then, I hope we won't be enemies in the future. One more enemy is better than one more friend. Tan Xiu smiled indifferently. If you're willing to leave Mist Source Island with the Reston organization's people, I guarantee we won't be enemies. Zhenlei Duomo frowned and said, whether our Reston organization's people leave Mist Source Island or not has nothing to do with you, Mr. Tang. Don't tell me you can represent the Chinese government. Tang Xiu directly took out the green book, flashed it and said, unfortunately, I can indeed represent the Chinese government. Having this thing is equivalent to having official rights. I personally brought some people to Mist Source Island to solve the problem here. I can tell you that all the foreign forces will become the enemies of our country if they continue to stay on Mist Source Island. They're also my enemies. A cold glint flashed in Zhenlei Duomo's eyes, but she still instantly restrained her aura. She seriously observed Tan Xiu a few times and finally slowly said, you can leave Mist Source Island if you can answer a question of mine and I'm satisfied with the answer. Say it. Tan Xiu could see that Zhenlei Duomo was unwilling, but he knew that she wouldn't dare to be his enemy. Mr. Tang may represent the Chinese government, but you're a cultivator after all. You should know about the Chinese cultivation world, right? Asked Zhenlei Duomo. I want to ask you about someone who's also a cultivator. Who is it? Asked Tan Xiu in astonishment. I'm not particularly clear about her situation. Zhenlei Duomo frowned. I only know that her name is Yen. She was in her 20s 20 years ago, but she should be in her 40s or 50s now. 40 or 50s? Yen? I'm sorry, I've never heard of this person. Tan Xiu shook his head. A disappointed look appeared in Zhenlei Duomo's eyes as she bitterly said, since Mr. Tang doesn't know, then I can only consult other cultivators in China. To tell you the truth, she supported me when I was growing up and later taught me a cultivation technique. But I lost contact with her many years ago. I've never heard of this person you mentioned. Tan Xiu nodded lightly. I don't know much about the situation in China's cultivation world. Many cultivators live incognito or hide in famous mountains and rivers. Unless they want to, it's very difficult for others to know their existence. Zhenlei Duomo didn't want to spend more time with Tan Xiu. Since she couldn't get the information she wanted, she immediately cupped her fists and said, if that's the case, then I'll take my leave. Tan Xiu didn't stop her. He watched her leave and was about to call Zaidan and Yishir-san to leave. Suddenly, Zaidan came to Tan Xiu's side and whispered, Boss, you seem to have forgotten someone. Who is it? Asked Tan Xiu, puzzled. The founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall, the former big boss, said Zaidan. Gu Yan, Tan Xiu stared blankly and his expression slightly changed. His precious disciple should be in her 20s more than 20 years ago, and her name also had the word Yen in it. Could there be some connection between them? Go and call her back. Tan Xiu directly sat cross-legged and took out a pen and paper from his interspatial ring. Just as he was about to draw Gu Yan's portrait, he suddenly recalled something and patted his forehead. He took out his mobile phone, opened the photo album, and selected Gu Yan's photo. A minute later, Zhenlei Duomo stood in front of Tan Xiu with a vigilant face. Is there anything else? Zhenlei Duomo was afraid of Tan Xiu, but she wasn't afraid of him. She knew very well that she was not Tan Xiu's opponent, but he wouldn't be able to stop her if she wanted to escape. Tan Xiu handed over his mobile phone and lightly said, look at this photo. Is it this woman? Zhenlei Duomo took the mobile phone with a confused look. When her eyes fell on the photo, her pupils suddenly contracted and her body violently trembled a few times. Yes, it's her. Zhenlei Duomo's voice was a bit trembling. She clearly remembered this face. It was the face that was deeply engraved in her heart. She was so beautiful and unparalleled in the past, and she was so cold and elegant. She didn't know what was holy and pure before, but she understood the meaning of the word holy and pure the first time she saw her. Tan Xiao raised his hand to touch the bridge of his nose and secretly smiled wryly inside. He knew that Gu Yen's footprints had been to every corner of the earth, but he didn't expect that she had left such a legacy in Mexico. Why are you looking for her? Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and then slowly asked. Zhenlei Duomo reluctantly moved her eyes away from the photo and said with an irrepressible excitement, "She's my benefactor, my master, and half a mother to me. I made a mistake in front of her that year. I shouldn't have killed a bad guy, so she left and didn't allow me to step into China. But I miss her." Upon hearing this, Tan Xiao stared blankly and immediately guessed Gu Yen's thoughts in the past. She would never despise Zhenlei Duomo for killing someone, because who didn't have hands stained with blood from the immortal world? Perhaps it was because of her body at that time. Chapter 745. Tan Xiao quietly observed Zhenlei Duomo. He could sense her emotional fluctuations and the intense longing she had for Gu Yen. Speaking of which, the core experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall were very lucky. At least, they were luckier than Zhenlei Duomo since they had the Everlasting Feast Hall as their home. Zhenlei Duomo, on the other hand, was like a lonely ghost who had been wandering outside for so many years. Tan Xiao's eyes then fell on Zidane and Yishirsan's faces. Sure enough, they looked at Zhenlei Duomo with softer eyes than before. "Zhenlei Duomo, do you want to see Yen?" Zhenlei Duomo's spirit shook and she hurriedly asked, "Can I see her? Do you know her whereabouts?" "Of course I know her whereabouts." Tan Xiao nodded and said, "As for whether you can see her or not, it depends on your performance." "How do you want me to perform?" asked Zhenlei Duomo quickly. "I can let your Reston organization stay in Mist Source Island for the time being," said Tan Xiao. "But you must obey my orders while you're on Mist Source Island. Of course, I can also guarantee your safety on Mist Source Island. I can guarantee your safety even if it's the Stygian Club and Pyramid." Zhenlei Duomo shot a deep look at Tan Xiao. A contemptuous look gradually appeared in her eyes as she shook her head and said, "You don't know how terrifying the Stygian Club and Pyramid are. If I were you, I'd never dare to talk big like that." Tan Xiao grinned and said, "There's an idiom in Huaxia that says a frog at the bottom of a well. Even if you know some secrets in this world, it's just a superficial understanding. I, Tan Xiao, don't like to talk big, but you can see if I can protect you or not." "Why should I believe you?" asked Zhenlei Duomo cautiously after hesitating for a long time. "Because you have no choice at all," said Tan Xiao lightly. "If you want to stay on Mist Source Island and see Yen, you can only choose to believe me. Also, you don't have to worry about me plotting against you, because if I wanted to kill you, you would already be a corpse by now." Zhenlei Duomo was smart. Looking at Tan Xiao's confident expression, she asked after a moment of silence, "What do you want me to do?" "I need you to help me kill the Stygian Club, the Pyramid, and dozens of other forces, or drive them out of Mist Source Island," said Tan Xiao decisively. "Solve the problem of Mist Source Island, and I can take you to see Yen. Zhenlei Duomo's pupils shrank. She suddenly realized that this young man named Tan Xiao was not as simple as she had imagined. At the very least, the power he had was not limited to just him and his two subordinates. Zhenlei Duomo took a deep breath and asked, "One last question. What is your relationship with her?" Yishir-san, who was standing at the side, was angry because Zhenlei Duomo didn't answer Tan Xiao for a long time. At this moment, he finally couldn't help but step forward and shout in a deep voice, "Zhenlei Duomo, you ask too many questions. Boss already thinks highly of you by answering your previous questions. Now, answer boss. Are you willing to work for boss in Mist Source Island?" "You," Zhenlei Duomo furrowed her brows. Yishir-san waved his hand to interrupt her and sternly shouted, "I'm warning you, this is your only chance to go home. If you don't cherish it, you can only continue to be a wandering ghost abroad and fend for yourself. The chance to go home. Zhenlei Duomo was shocked and seemed to realize something in a flash. She looked at Tan Xiao in disbelief before shifting her eyes to Yishir-san and Zaidan. Countless thoughts churned in her mind. Finally, she gritted her teeth and said, I promise you, but I can choose to refuse if your request is too much. Tan Xiao smiled indifferently and said, First of all, disperse your rest-in men. I don't need them as armed forces to fight with other forces, but I hope they can serve as intelligence personnel to understand the movements of other forces on Mist Source Island and report back to me in time. You're very powerful, so you can stay with me. Zhenlei Duomo pondered for a moment and slowly nodded. I'll give the order right away. Tan Xiao stopped her and ordered, Remember, tell your men to behave themselves and don't do anything outrageous on Mist Source Island. This place belongs to China, and I'm responsible for solving the crisis on Mist Source Island, so I don't want your men to make trouble for me. Understood. Zhenlei Duomo replied and instantly rushed toward her men in the distance. Zaidan, who stood beside Tan Xiao, retracted her gaze from Zhenlei Duomo's back and asked in a low voice, Boss, do you want to recruit her into our everlasting feast hall? Tan Xiao sighed. She has some relationship with Yen, after all. It's worth considering if she's not a bad person. Let's observe first. The problem on Mist Source Island is very serious. Those foreign forces are like hungry wolves, eyeing the resources of Mist Source Island and trying to threaten the Chinese government. But we don't have much time, and I still have to participate in the research of the darkening virus antidote, so we must cut the Gordian knot quickly. What should we do next? Asked Zaidan. Zhenlei Duomo has killed Miao Hengfu, so one of our hidden dangers has been eliminated, said Tan Xiao. The next step is to deal with those foreign forces. Let them kill each other, and we'll clean up the mess when most of them are dead. In the northern suburbs of Mixed Summit City. The Stygian Club's camp had been moved here because it was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, so Keith Moore considered this place to be hidden. The Pyramid Elementalists seemed to have gone crazy and launched several attacks on them in succession, causing the 2 Spectre squads he recruited to suffer heavy losses. Even Basil and Ality were badly injured. Have you investigated it? Keith Moore's eyes turned cold as he stared at the young man in front of him. I've investigated it thoroughly. The young man nodded. The attacks on the various forces last night were actually done by the Pyramid's people. Our people were killed and their corpses were used to frame us. Now, those forces have joined forces. On one hand, they are keeping a distance from the pyramid, while on the other hand, they are planning to attack us. Don't tell me they don't understand that this is all a conspiracy of the pyramid? Keith Moore angrily shouted. No one is a fool since they can hold such power. The young man forced a smile. Yet, they are still preparing to attack us, which means that our existence is a threat to them. Though they know that this is a conspiracy of the pyramid, the attack on them gives them an opportunity to unite and contend with us. Those people are ambitious, they want more resources and benefits. Keith Moore sneered and immediately asked, what about the pyramid's people? They're only about 30 kilometers away from us now, answered the young man. They're stationed in the eastern mountains. After their investigation, they found that the number of people in the pyramid is far more than what we've investigated before. Furthermore, we also found that one of the pyramid's war elders, Bodit, has arrived. Ghoul war elder, Bodit. Keith Moore's eyes turned cold and intense killing intent burst out from him. He had some dealings with most of the pyramid's war elders, and this ghoul war elder, Bodit, had a deep grudge against him. Arrange the blood array and blood poison. Keith Moore uttered those words through gritted teeth. The young man's expression changed and he hurriedly said, Sir, once we arrange the blood array, we'll really have to fight them to the death. Slap! Keith Moore slapped the young man and angrily shouted, Idiot! We're now in a situation where we have to fight them to the death. Go and tell them to get ready. Since they want to get rid of us, then we'll kill them first. Understood. The young man looked fearful and quickly crawled up from the ground and rushed out of the tent as though he was fleeing for his life. In the evening, Tan Xiu, Dan Dan, Yishir San, and Jinlei Duomo quietly appeared in the eastern part of Mixed Summit City. After the four of them investigated, they found that all forces were stationed here. Whoosh, a ghost-like figure appeared nearby without a sound. Jinlei Duomo instantly pulled out her long saber and instantly locked the person with a dense killing intent. Don't. Tan Xiu immediately stopped Jinlei Duomo. He looked at Jin Shi who appeared in front of him lightning fast and asked, "What's the situation?" Jin Shi indifferently glanced at Jinlei Duomo and respectfully reported, "Boss, Pyramid's people are stationed in the northwest of Mixed Summit City. We've investigated and determined that they have a total of 62 people. Further, we've also investigated that the leader of Pyramid is called Wu Jia, the Wisdom War Elder." Tan Xiu nodded and sneered. The Pyramid's War Elder, hee. They really value Mist Source Island, to think that even such a big shot has appeared. It's not only the Wisdom War Elder, Wu Jia, but also the Ghoul War Elder, Bodit, said Jin Shi with a solemn expression. It was Bodit and his men who attacked the Stygian Club last night. Yeah. Tan Xiu replied. He turned to look at Jinlei Duomo and calmly said, "Don't make a fuss about someone appearing here. Jin Shi is my man, and our men will arrive soon." Jinlei Duomo was a bit shocked. She didn't expect that Tan Xiu had so many cultivators under him. Furthermore, the strength of this guy who just arrived was not to be underestimated. At this moment, she was curious about the number of men Tan Xiu had. From Tan Xiu's words, it seemed that there should be a few more, right? 2 hours later, Jinlei Duomo looked at the 9 men of Tan Xiu in front of her and was shocked to the point that it was hard to be more shocked. 9 expert martial cultivators. To be able to control such a powerful force, no matter where they went, they would be a terrifying force, and they would be able to occupy a large territory. Chapter 746. In the dense mountain forest, Mo Al and Shui Gui were like ghosts in the night as they approached Tan Xiu's position at lightning speed. It didn't take long for the duo to appear in front of Tan Xiu. Huh? Shui Gui suddenly furrowed his brows. When he saw Jinlei Duomo standing next to Tan Xiu, a fierce killing intent instantly erupted from his body. He instantly unleashed his flying sword and fiercely slashed it toward Jinlei Duomo. Tan Xiu's complexion slightly changed. He flickered and appeared in front of Jinlei Duomo lightning fast and unleashed his sword to block Shui Gui's strike. As he took a step back, he angrily shouted, "Shui Gui, stop!" Shui Gui didn't realize what it meant for Jinlei Duomo to stand next to Tan Xiu. His expression slightly changed when he saw his boss blocking his attack. He instantly retracted his flying sword, but still shot a murderous look at Jinlei Duomo. "What's going on?" Tan Xiu frowned and asked. "It turns out to be Shui Gui." Jinlei Duomo sneered. "I didn't expect that your strength would improve so much after 7 years. What's wrong? Do you still want to avenge your water snake brother?" Whoosh, aside from Mo Al, the other 9 instantly unleashed their flying swords and glared at Jinlei Duomo with killing intent. The sudden change made Jinlei Duomo's expression slightly change and she instantly retreated half a step. "Answer my question, Shui Gui." Tan Xiu frowned and asked in a deep voice. Shui Gui was loyal to Tan Xiu and could sense the anger in Tan Xiu's tone. He quickly lowered his head and said, "Boss, I once had a younger brother called Water Snake. He used to be a core member of our everlasting feast hall. 7.5 years ago, we 2 brothers were on a mission abroad and met this woman. Her appearance didn't change much, so I'm 100% sure it's her. She killed my brother and seriously injured me, causing me to fall off a cliff and be trapped for several days, almost dying in a foreign country. I've been trying to find her all these years, but I didn't expect that she would appear here." Tan Xiu turned to look at Jinlei Duomo and asked in a deep voice, "You killed his brother? Why?" Jinlei Duomo bluntly said, "We're in different camps, and each has its own master. In order to steal information and assassinate my employer, you 2 brothers have used many despicable methods. Yes, I killed the water snake, but if I didn't kill him, I would be the one who died. Come to think of it, that battle was caused by you guys. As for me, it can only be considered a counterattack. This, although Shui Gue knew that what Jinlei Duomo said made sense, the one who died was still his younger brother. This hatred had been buried in his heart for many years, and he couldn't let it go. Tan Xiu had a headache. He didn't expect to encounter such a situation. However, he was biased towards Jinlei Duomo. Back then, they had fought to the death for their respective masters. It was either you die or I die. But, hatred. How to solve it? Tan Xiu took a deep breath, waved his hand and said, Shui Gue, you can talk about the enmity between you two after solving the matter on Mist Source Island. But I can tell you in advance that Jinlei Duomo is the same as you. Yen gave her grace when you were young. I'll personally take you back to Jingmen Island after solving the matter here. You can ask Yen about how to solve the enmity between you two. After saying that, his eyes then shifted to the others and lightly said, put away your weapons. If you want to kill someone, then get rid of those foreign forces first. Jin Shi and the others took back their flying swords. Shui Gue hesitated for a moment before he also released his flying sword into his body. He didn't dare to disobey Tan Xiu's order, but he secretly made up his mind to make Jinlei Duomo pay the price after the matter on Mist Source Island was solved. Tan Xiu looked at Mo Ao and asked, what news did you get from your side? Mo Ao took out a map and respectfully said, there's been some changes in the Stygian Club's camp. After our investigation, we found that the Stygian Club's people are arranging a very strange array. We've marked the location. It's on the only road to enter the Stygian Club's camp. Tan Xiu took the map and looked at it a few times. He then nodded and said, since the Stygian Club can become the third largest foreign force, they definitely have some unknown cards up their sleeves. Our purpose this time is very simple. We want them to kill each other and both sides will suffer. The only thing we need to guard against now is the pyramid's people. Alright, let's go and watch the tigers fight. In the northern suburbs of Mixed Summit City. Tan Xiu quietly arrived with Mo Ao and the others and circled to the mountain northwest of the Stygian Club's camp from another direction. After searching for a good location, Tan Xiu then quietly arranged a concealment array. We'll set up camp here and wait for those ambitious people to kill each other. Don't we have to add fuel to the fire in the dark, boss? Asked Mo Ao. Of course we have to add fuel to the fire. Tan Xiu sneered. But I'll handle this myself. All of you stay here. All, do you still have those vampire corpses? Mo Ao took out the broken wing from his interspatial ring and said, only these. Tang Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, that's enough. You stay here and wait. You stay here and wait. Having said that, he suddenly realized something and his eyes swept over Shui Gue and Jinlei Duomo. Then, he indifferently said, remember my words. Put down your grudges for the time being and wait until we return to Jingmen Island. I'll severely punish any of you if you dare to act in private. Understood. Understood. Shui Gue and Jinlei Duomo glared at each other and obediently complied. In the mountain forest tens of kilometers east of Mixed Summit City, dozens of tents were set up in a mess, with many heavily armed men vigilantly patrolling the surrounding environment. In one of the tents, more than a dozen leaders of various forces were gathered and quarreling with each other with flushed faces. I suggest we don't rush to act first. Let's make sure that all the members of the Stygian Club on Mist Source Island won't be able to escape even if they have wings. Then, we'll encircle and annihilate all those divergent races of the Stygian Club, said a burly black man. In the face of absolute power, all conspiracies and tricks are like clay chickens and pottery dogs that can't withstand a single blow. We have more than a dozen forces, and there's no lack of real experts among them. Also, even if those divergent races are very powerful, we still have a lot of firepower support. None of them will be able to escape. That's why I suggest we launch a direct attack, shouted another white man in a deep voice. I think we'd better wait. It's best if we can act together with the pyramid. Else, the pyramid will take advantage of us once we and the Stygian club suffer heavy losses. That's right. The pyramid's people are eyeing us covetously. They're also full of hatred toward the Stygian club. We'll have stronger power if we join forces. In case the pyramid's people turn against us at the last minute, it'll only increase unforeseen events. I think we shouldn't go with them. In the chaotic scene, everyone wanted to decide according to their own ideas. For a time, the whole situation fell into a deadlock. A few kilometers away, Tan Xiao was like a ghost in the dark as he quietly approached two foreign men with guns. At the moment when the two of them were unaware, a sharp dagger tore open their throats and killed them immediately. Then, he continued to wander around the periphery, constantly hunting and killing the forces on the periphery. 12. After Tan Xiao felt that it was about time, he deliberately made a little noise and threw a dozen feathers from the vampire's wings next to the corpses before he directly left. Bang, 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 bullets whizzed out as 7 or 8 armed men on guard fired in the direction where Tan Xiao left and then hurriedly chased after him. Unfortunately, although their speed was fast, there was still a huge gap between them and Tan Xiao. They stopped chasing after him after they arrived near the corpses of the two dead armed men. A feather. One of them, a middle-aged man with a high status, picked up the feather and looked at it. The killing intent in his eyes turned more intense and he rushed to the tent area almost without hesitation. What's the matter? More than a dozen leaders of various forces rushed out of the tent as the burly black man asked aloud. The middle-aged man came to the front of everyone and took out more than a dozen feathers in his hand. Then, he quickly said, "Our men on guard duty in the periphery were sneakily attacked. We've just confirmed the number of people killed. There are a total of 12. I found these feathers next to the corpses of our men. They should be the feathers of a vampire. Bastards! They're going too far. They're too arrogant. Kill them, revenge." The leaders of the various forces had a drastic change in expression as they roared furiously. They thought that the Stygian club's people were like rats now, hiding and not daring to come out. Never did they expect that the Stygian club's people would be so arrogant as to sneak attack their men in the dark. Kill. There was no consensus at first, but a consensus was reached in just a few minutes. Tomorrow morning, they would immediately take action and kill all the Stygian club's members on Mist Source Island at all costs. After returning to the concealment array, Tan Xiao observed the situation on the Stygian club's side through a high-powered telescope. Then, he sat cross-legged on a bluestone and looked at the dozens of people, asking, "If my guess is correct, those forces won't be a match for the Stygian club even if they join forces. If the Stygian club's members don't suffer too many losses in the next battle, I'm afraid the pyramid won't directly take action. Can anyone think of a way to get the pyramid's people to participate in this?" "I have a way to deal with the pyramid's people," said Jinlei Duomo all of a sudden. "I don't need the pyramid's people to get involved." "Tell me quickly. What's the way?" Tan Xiao's spirit shook and he quickly asked. Chapter 747. A chilling glint flashed in Jinlei Duomo's eyes as she slowly said, "I carry a very terrifying laxative with me. As long as we can sneak this laxative into the meals of the Stygian club's members, we can make them suffer from abdominal pain and crazily defecate. When the two sides fight, even if the Stygian club's members try their best to fight back, it will greatly affect them and cause them to suffer huge losses." "Laxative? Will this laxative be useful to the divergent races?" asked Tan Xiao with a frown. "Absolutely." Jinlei Duomo nodded and said, "This laxative I got is very powerful. Even I will be affected if I take it, let alone those divergent races. As a matter of fact, I once fought a vampire marquis a few years ago, but I was defeated by him. To wash away my shame, I found that mysterious poison master and asked him to concoct this laxative for me. Later on, that vampire marquis almost had his intestines pulled out. In the end, I killed him directly even though I was weaker than him. It's indeed a good method, but the taste of the food doesn't taste right. I'm afraid those divergent races will easily notice it," said Tan Xiao. "The laxative I got won't," said Jinlei Duomo proudly. It's colorless and tasteless, so it won't be noticed even if it's mixed into the food. Tan Xiu thought for a moment before he nodded and said, "Oh, go to the southeast and find out when those forces started to attack the Stygian Club's people. Jinlei Duomo, I need you to sneak into the Stygian Club's encampment and immediately put the laxative in their meals after receiving my message." "Understood. Understood." Ao and Jinlei Duomo complied and left at an extremely fast speed. The next morning, when the red sun rose from the east, half of the sky illuminated Mist Source Island, making it look magnificent as though a gorgeous coat was draped over it. The total number of people from more than a dozen forces totaled more than 560 people as they aggressively stormed toward the Stygian Club's encampment. Near them, there were more than 20 experts who were very powerful and could no longer be considered ordinary humans. They quickly cleared the obstacles on the road and covered the large group of people as they entered the canyon. Half an hour ago, Jinlei Duomo had secretly put laxatives in the food of the Stygian Club's members. After half an hour of brewing, dozens of Stygian Club members felt a stomachache and severe diarrhea. Killing, fighting. It could be triggered at any moment. As the most powerful man in the Stygian Club, Keith Moore was also flustered by this sudden change. Nearly 600 people from the Allied forces charged into the canyon and charged through the array formation, launching fierce attacks one after another. On the northwest hillside, Tan Xiu watched the battle below with great interest. What he found very interesting was that the Stygian Club had a lot of experts. Not only were there a lot of vampires, werewolves, wingmen, and other beast men, but facing the enemy's attack, they could only endure the diarrhea and launch a counterattack. Kill. It was carried out amidst the splattering of blood and continued amidst the howls of pain. In another direction, the pyramid's wisdom war elder, Wu Jia, had been waiting for a long time with dozens of experts from the pyramid. They didn't expect that the Stygian Club's experts would suffer from massive diarrhea. Wu Jia, who wanted to be the fisherman who benefited from the fight between the fish and the clam, was stimulated by such a good thing. Get ready to join the battle at any time. Wu Jia glanced at Bodit, who was standing straight next to him, and smilingly said while stroking his beard. Bodit, however, furrowed his brows and slowly said, "The situation is a bit special. If the people who secretly gave the Stygian Club's members laxatives are not from the Allied forces, then this matter is too strange. I suggest that we don't act rashly and wait for the battle to settle down before we directly act." Wu Jia, who was also known as the Wisdom War Elder, nodded without hesitation. "We only need to surround the Stygian Club's encampment and wait for both sides to suffer. Then we'll clean up the mess. Everyone, get moving and pay attention to the attack signal. We'll immediately act as soon as we find it." Time passed by bit. After half an hour of fierce fighting, be it the Stygian Club or the joint forces of more than a dozen forces, all of them had paid a very heavy price. Among them, the burly black man was hit by a werewolf and suffered serious injuries. It was under such circumstances that the Alliance members began to feel fear and were ready to find an opportunity to slip away. Stop them and activate the array. Seeing that the enemy was gradually losing, Keith Moore didn't hesitate to issue the order with intense killing intent. As the 4 vampire counts attacked one after another, the array was activated and the blood poison was released. Aargh, shrill screams came out of the Allied forces' experts' mouths. Moreover, after this shrill scream, more screams started to ring out one after another. "Break the array and kill the enemy." One of the Caucasian leaders roared as he dashed towards a vampire count. However, the vampire count killed the Caucasian leader with a single strike. A few of the Caucasian men around him, who had been firing their guns at the Caucasian leader, were killed by the blood poison. A life for a life. A skinny, dark-skinned young man in the Alliance army had his back torn open by a werewolf's sharp claws. The moment blood flowed out, he suddenly stuck his fingers into his eye sockets and forcefully gouged out his eyeballs. As blood gushed out, he let out a shrill, blood-curdling scream. A cloud of black smoke that was as black as ink spread from his body, forming a black fog tornado like a hurricane. A large amount of blood splattered beside the corpses on the ground, but at this moment, the blood seemed to have been summoned by something and quickly flowed toward him before finally fusing with the black fog tornado. Boom! In just a few breaths, a tens of meters tall black fog tornado was formed. The moment the skinny young man's body exploded, a mushroom cloud resembling a nuclear bomb exploded and instantly turned several Stygian club werewolves and vampires into a bloody mist, while 7 to 8 allied forces were also killed in an instant. On the ground, the blood array was broken and the blood poison dispersed. The crazy killing continued, and the Stygian club's members eventually retreated amidst sharp roars as their losses increased. They originally had 50 to 60 people, but only less than 20 of them were left after the retreat. The Allied forces were even more miserable. Less than 200 people survived out of the nearly 600 people, and more than half of them were badly wounded. In the northwest direction, Tan Xiu stood at the edge of the concealment array and looked at the tragic scene below. His heart was as calm as still water. The killing scene in front of him was common and not surprising at all. However, Mo Ao and the others, including the ruthless Xinlei Duomo, had a slight change in expression. They were all ruthless characters with hands stained with blood. Many of them had climbed out of the pile of corpses many times. But most of the battles they had in the past relied on firearms. It was far from the excitement of close combat where flesh and blood splattered everywhere. "Boss, are we going to act?" Mo Ao glanced at Tan Xiu and asked in a low voice. He was secretly surprised by Tan Xiu's calmness. He really couldn't figure out whether Tan Xiu was too ruthless or what he had experienced in the past. Tan Xiu shook his head indifferently and said, "The most important protagonist of today hasn't appeared yet. What's the point of us acting now? Don't worry. Let's wait and see. I'm sure the scene will be more exciting after the protagonist appears." Mo Ao's expression moved and he hesitantly asked, "You mean, the pyramid?" "Speaking of which, the pyramid is the largest organization in the world," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "The Stygian Club is at best an amalgamation of various forces, but the pyramid is different. It's a whole entity and has a very good operation, be it in the face of enemies or development. Just wait and see. The pyramid's wisdom war elder will probably thank us for the arrangement." "Why?" Mo Ao was confused and asked. "The sandpiper and the clam fight and the fisherman benefits," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "Don't tell me he doesn't thank us for our painstaking arrangement." Mo Ao suddenly understood and chuckled. "Boss, I don't think it's appropriate to describe it as the sandpiper and the clam fight and the fisherman benefits. It's better to describe it as the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Because behind the oriole, there's still the hunter. We're the final winner, the hunter. How could there be so many twists and turns?" Tan Xiu couldn't help but laugh. "Huh. The protagonist is coming." Mo Ao and the others' expressions shifted and they quickly looked towards the distance. From the southeast, 50 to 60 figures flickered lightning fast toward the coalition forces of various forces. Some of them even chased after the Stygian Club's retreat. Just as the Stygian Club's 5 vampires and 3 or 4 wingmen were flying in the air and were about to retreat to the top of the mountain in the north, a series of gunshots accompanied by bullets were heard, blocking their escape route. "Stay!" 3 old men exuding surging auras led more than a dozen able-bodied ability users to soar from behind the hilltop. They unleashed their special abilities, causing lightning to wreak havoc and hurricanes to appear out of nowhere. Water dragons bared their fangs and brandished their claws, while sharp metal blades blotted out the sky. Fire, the air was as though a prairie fire was burning crazily. A deep and dignified voice sounded as several wingmen were shrouded in raging flames. The vampires were nearly roasted by the fire as they crazily fell down. The War Elder of Wisdom, Wu Jia, wielded a golden scepter and stepped on a fiery cloud as he instantly swept past 2 vampire counts. It looked like a casual strike, but the 2 vampire counts were directly killed. "You fucking bastard, Wu Jia." Keith Moore's figure finally shot over from afar. His billowing voice was deafening and contained boundless anger. A thin old man next to the war elder of wisdom burst into laughter. You're the one who deserves to die, Keith Moore. I didn't kill you back then, but I won't show you any mercy today. Hurricane, Myriad / Chapter 748. Even if there was no earth-shaking and earth-shattering scene in the fight between real powerhouses, it still made people's hearts tremble inexplicably. The majestic momentum, the murderous blade lights and sword shadows, the bloody rain, and the foul wind made even the experts of the everlasting feast hall slightly change their expressions. They're so strong. Jinlei Duomo watched the scene of wisdom war elder Wu Jia, Keith Moore, and the others fighting in midair. The shock inside her was like a surging tide. She thought that she was already very strong, but she didn't expect that there would be such a big gap between her and these powerhouses from the Stygian Club and Pyramid. Suddenly, Jinlei Duomo's eyes moved away from the fight and landed on Tan Xiu's indifferent expression. She hesitantly asked, Mr. Tang, I know that you're stronger than me, but compared to them, who's stronger and who's weaker? I may not be as good as them if it's a friendly match, said Tan Xiu indifferently. But if it's a desperate fight, their chance of survival will be less than 1%. Jinlei Duomo shuddered inwardly. She didn't think that Tan Xiu was just talking nonsense. Facing such a bloody and crazy fight at this moment, where there was a possibility of fighting at any time, bragging was tantamount to courting death. Tan Xiu glanced at Jinlei Duomo and then shifted his gaze back to the fight. Along with the crazy fight ahead, the ordinary humans had already left the battlefield. Many of them didn't know that vampires and ability users existed in this world. Facing these legendary and terrifying monsters, they didn't even have the thought to pull the trigger of their guns. Huh? Tan Xiu's expression suddenly changed as he watched the fight. In the air a few kilometers away from them, Wu Jia and Bodit were both injured, but their combat strength was still very strong. But Keith Moore and his subordinates were different. Except for the two vampires, Basil and Ality, the other two had died in battle. What made Tang Xiu's expression change was that the three vampires, Keith Moore, Basil, and Ality, who were in a disadvantageous position, desperately pushed back Wu Jia and Bodit and then rushed towards his direction. Tan Xiu's eyes were like torches. He could even clearly determine where Keith Moore and the other two had landed. They were in the vicinity of the concealment array. Once Wu Jia and Bodit caught up to them and started fighting in the vicinity, the concealment formation would be affected and they would be exposed. Ah Wu, give me a mask. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Mo All quickly took out two bronze masks from his space ring and handed one to Tan Xiu before quickly putting one on himself. Jean Shi and the others also grabbed the bronze masks they carried with them and quickly put them on. Only Jinlei Duomo looked at Tan Xiu and the others in confusion. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Tan Xiu said, give one to Jinlei Duomo. All right. Mo All glared at Jinlei Duomo, but in the end, he still took out one and gave it to her. Wind Tide. Dressed in a green robe and holding a red crystal stick in his hand, Bodit frantically waved his crystal stick. As he rapidly chased after them, he constantly slashed out wind blades. The entire world in front of him was filled with hundreds and thousands of wind blades as he chased after the afterimages left behind by Keith Moore and the other two. When a large number of trees on the hillside were ravaged by the wind blades and fell to the ground, Keith Moore, Basil, and Ality were already less than 100 meters away from the concealment array where Tan Xiu and the others were hiding. Our targets are the two vampires who had previously fled. Tan Xiu instantly unleashed his long sword. As the other party was getting closer, his figure instantly disappeared and directly appeared in front of Keith Moore. The violent sword slash was as though it could tear the space barrier apart. Energy swarmed in from all directions, forming a terrifying killing move. What? Keith Moore's complexion drastically changed. Never once did he expect that there would be an ambush in front of him. What made him most afraid was that the other party seemed to have appeared out of thin air without any warning. Swoosh, the sword light swept across and cut off one of Keith Moore's wings in an instant. Along with his painful howl, two sword lights appeared out of thin air and pierced through his abdomen and waist before sinking into Basil's and Ality's chests. Ality and Basil were both injured and caught off guard by the sneak attack. Even though the attack had avoided their hearts, it left 2 hideous bloody wounds on their bodies. At this moment, Basil and Ality, the 2 natives vampires, felt as if they had just survived a disaster. Just as they were about to muster all their strength to escape from this place, another 8 flying swords came shooting at them. Puff, puff, the 8 flying swords pierced through their bodies, causing blood to blossom. In despair, Basil and Ality's bodies fell down. The moment they hit the ground, they died completely because their cores were shattered. Tang Xiu didn't pay attention to Basil and Ality, but appeared next to Keith more like a shadow. As he cast a seal, wind, thunder, and lightning flashed, forming a terrifying scene that instantly enveloped Keith Moore. The long sword flying next to Tang Xiu instantly pierced Keith Moore's head. Boom! The moment Keith Moore was seriously injured, Tang Xiu fiercely punched his chest. Although the powerful force didn't shatter his core, it still sent him flying upside down. Chop! The long sword slashed down, piercing Keith Moore's heart from his left shoulder and even splitting his right leg in half. 4 to 5 seconds passed. It only took 4 to 5 seconds for Tang Xiu and the others to appear from the concealment array to the assassination. However, Keith Moore, who was extremely powerful and had a very high status in the Stygian Club, and his 2 men, Basil and Ality, were killed. Who are you? Wu Jia trod on the void, surrounded by raging flames. He spread his arms to stop the pursuing pyramid experts behind him and glared at Tang Xiu and the others as he shouted. Tang Xiu sneered. After gathering with Mo Ao and the others, he glared at Wu Jia and said, "You actually dare to ask who we are after causing trouble in my Huaxia's territory? To think that you're hailed as the pyramid's wisdom war elder. I think you're just stupid." Huaxia. Cultivators. Wu Jia's body trembled. He instantly raised the golden scepter and said in a deep voice, "You killed the Stygian Club's people. It has nothing to do with our pyramid. There's an old adage that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Let's join hands to destroy all the Stygian Club's experts on Mist Source Island. We can be considered friends, right? We can be friends if your pyramid's people immediately leave Mist Source Island," Tang Xiu sneered. "But if you continue to covet the resources of Mist Source Island and want to invade our territory, then you're our enemy." "You mean, you want to represent the Huaxia government?" Wu Jia frowned. "We're the Huaxia government's people, so we can naturally represent them," Tang Xiu replied coldly. "Mist Source Island is Huaxia's territory, a territory we haven't opened to the outside world. You trespassing here is tantamount to trespassing our territory. Hence, I'm giving you a chance to leave. But if you still want to stay here, you won't end up better than the Stygian Club's people." At Wu Jia's side, Bodit's eyes gleamed with dense killing intent. Before Wu Jia could speak, he had already pounced toward Tang Xiu. "You're courting death." Mo Ao and the others rushed out and controlled their flying swords to fight Bodit. Tang Xiu waved his hand and threw out 24 array discs. As his hands drew in the air, the star brilliance array was arranged in just a few breaths. Along with the instantaneous activation, Wu Jia's expression drastically changed and he flashed back 100 meters. Fortunately, he was able to escape the star brilliance array the moment it was activated, while Bodit directly appeared inside the array. "Retreat! I'm going to kill him." Tang Xiu's figure moved and appeared at the array's eye as he shouted aloud. In a flash, Mo Ao and the others could clearly hear Tang Xiu's voice transmission to them, pointing them to the direction to leave the star brilliance array. As they left the star brilliance array, Tang Xiu manipulated the array to make the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise appear out of thin air and surrounded Bodit from 4 directions. "Kill him." Following Tang Xiu's order, the 4 divine beasts unleashed their respective supernatural abilities and constantly launched fierce attacks at Bodit. Bodit's strength was very formidable, and he was even stronger than Tang Xiu in his heyday. However, the star brilliance array that Tang Xiu had set up was based on the principles of the 24 constellations array diagram. Moreover, he had added a lot of Tan Shio's own understanding of array formations, making the star brilliance array even more powerful. Just the star brilliance array alone was enough to bring Bodit great danger. Coupled with Tan Shio's control, Bodit was surrounded by perils for a while and almost lost his life at the hands of the 4 divine beasts several times. 100 meters away. Wu Jie looked at the void in front of him with a face full of fear. He could feel a huge amount of energy constantly being drawn from all directions and eventually forming a special space. He stood outside but could not see anything inside. There was no Tan Shio or Bodit. Wu Jie knew that Tan Shio must have used some kind of method to trap Bodit inside. It was even very likely that Bodit was under great threat at this moment. Wu Jie pondered for a while and suddenly said, "Little friend, how about we talk?" Inside the star brilliance array, Tan Shio's face suddenly turned cold when he heard the word, "little friend." Almost in an instant, the surging primal chaos force in his body poured out. In just a few breaths, the 4 divine beasts' bodies nearly doubled in size and the power of the star brilliance array multiplied. Bodit narrowly avoided the azure dragon's sweeping tail, but the white tiger's sharp claws tore open a bloody wound on his back. Before the crisis was over, the vermilion bird's flames burned his body, and the black tortoise slammed its head into Bodit's chest, causing his sternum to be smashed. Die. Tan Shio's figure instantly disappeared from the eye of the array. When the long sword turned into a stream of light and pierced through Bodit's chest, Tan Shio's figure appeared in front of Bodit. He did not give him a chance to dodge and punched him in the head. Blood splattered. A one-hit kill. Brothers and sisters, please support us with your monthly votes. Chapter 749. Buzz, a strange melody instantly spread and a hazy figure appeared outside the star brilliance great array out of thin air. Tang Shio grabbed Bodit's head and appeared in front of Wu Jie with a murderous aura. Bodit? Wu Jie was horrified and involuntarily exclaimed. He never dreamed that Bodit would be killed in such a short time. An array. The legendary array that cultivators from the Middle East are good at? Wu Jie recalled the records he had read in the ancient books and his heart suddenly twitched a few times. Although they had explored some mineral resources in Mist Source Island this time, they didn't excavate them at all. They had just planned to take root in Mist Source Island and set up a secret base for the pyramid, yet they had suffered such a huge loss before they could even start to implement it. We've lost everything and suffered heavy losses. Although Wu Jie was full of unwillingness, he was perfectly aware that his plan to lead the team to Mist Source Island would most likely fail. Tan Shio looked at Wu Jie's constantly changing expression and said in a deep voice, "You're lucky to be able to escape from my array, War Elder Wu Jie. But I can tell you that luck only comes once. If you insist on having your way and still want to stay on Mist Source Island, then, this Mist Source Island will be your burial ground." Wu Jie hated Tan Shio because Bodit was his closest companion. Now that he died in Tan Shio's hands, this blood feud must be avenged. However, he was also well aware of one thing: a wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. As long as there's life, there's hope. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later. In an instant. "Give me Bodit's body and I'll immediately leave Mist Source Island with my men," said Wu Jie in a deep voice. Understood. Tan Shio happily returned Bodit's body to Wu Jie and personally led his men to follow Wu Jie and the others to evacuate. Just as they left the white mist area, Tan Shio coldly snorted and said, "Keep in mind that I won't welcome your people from the pyramid in the future. Kill one if you find one, and kill two if you find two." "May I know your name, mister?" asked Wu Jie in a deep voice. Tan Shio sneered and said, "You're not qualified to know my name. If the people of the pyramid obediently stay in your hometown, I might not take the initiative to find trouble with you. Otherwise, I don't mind bringing some people to your place." Wu Jie said grimly, "See you later." Finished. He quickly boarded a passenger ship with the people from the pyramid and soon disappeared into the distant sea. Tan Shio turned his head to look at Mo Ao and said, "Take some men to clean up the people from the other forces on Mist Source Island. Remember, don't leave anyone alive and kill them all. Zhenlei Duomo, cooperate with Ao and the others. We must solve these problems as soon as possible. Zhenlei Duomo quickly said, Mr. Tang, isn't it too crazy to kill all the people from the other forces on Mist Source Island? You should know that those forces are not to be underestimated. If they... Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt Zhenlei Duomo and coldly snorted, since I dared to kill them, I'm not afraid of their revenge. Do as I say. Zhenlei Duomo was silent for a moment and then nodded helplessly. She knew that Tan Xiu was very strong and had more than a dozen cultivators under him. But it was definitely not a wise move to go against so many huge foreign forces. At this moment, she suddenly despised Tan Xiu a lot. Mist Source Island Military Base. After returning here, Tan Xiu met with Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu as fast as possible. He learned that the doctor had discovered the principle of the darkening virus and was now going all out to concoct an antidote. As a matter of fact, Tan Xiu was well aware of his own limitations. His attainments in Chinese medicine were simply incomparable to Gui Jianqiu. The reason why he could treat so many difficult and complicated diseases was entirely due to his cultivation methods. Do you need my help? Asked Tan Xiu while looking at Gui Jianqiu's tired but still busy figure. No need for the time being. Gui Jianqiu shook his head and said, if the antidote I've researched still can't completely solve the darkening virus problem by noon tomorrow, I'll find another solution. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you then. Tan Xiu nodded. After leaving the temporary research institute, he saw Yang Chuxiong in a military uniform rushing over with several officers. Division Commander Yang, I need your help. Tan Xiu had a plan in mind, so he spoke directly. What do you need us to do, Mr. Tang? Asked Yang Chuxiong quickly. Contact the leaders in the country. The higher the better, said Tan Xiu. I think it'll be much easier if you can pass my needs to the number one leader. Yang Chuxiong's expression slightly changed and asked, why do you need to contact the number one leader? I need jades, a lot of raw materials that haven't been carved, said Tan Xiu. The situation in Mist Source Island is very special, but some people can still come in easily. I'm going to arrange a powerful array around the island. Unless it's someone who knows how to get in and out of the array, no outsider can break in. Array? Yang Chuxiong was surprised. You mean the means of those ancient geomancy warlocks? Do you know how to arrange the Qimen Duanjia? I know a bit about it, said Tan Xiu with a nod. In fact, it's very easy to get raw jades. Yang Chuxiong hesitated. As long as the higher-ups approve it, I believe they'll be sent here soon. But once you arrange that kind of array, won't it be troublesome? Mist Source Island may not have much contact with the outside world, but it's not completely isolated. In case. I know what you're thinking. Tan Xiu interrupted him. Actually, I have a very good suggestion. Since the country wants to hide the existence of Mist Source Island, then we can seal the entire island. We can set up an entrance and an exit in 2 places on Mist Source Island. Just like the airport security check. We can set up a special department, and only the people from this department can open the passage and provide access services. Yang Chuxiong's eyes turned brighter and brighter as he listened to Tan Xiu's words. In the end, he couldn't help but slap the table and praise it. If it could really be done as Tan Xiu said, then there would be no need to worry about foreign forces sneaking into Mist Source Island in the future. Enter Mist Source Island, register, and let them in. Leave Mist Source Island, register, and let them out. Establish a perfect traffic order and control the flow of people in and out. The most important thing was that once this method was completed, the country could truly control Mist Source Island in the truest sense. Yang Chuxiong excitedly rubbed his hands and suddenly asked, Mr. Tang, what's the effect of the Qimen Duanjia you arranged? Can it kill the enemy? I've watched the TV series Generals of the Yang family, and the Sky Gate array in it is very powerful. There are some arrays that can kill the enemy, but the one I want to arrange is mainly for defense, said Tan Xiu with a strange expression. However, it's not impossible to make the array play an offensive role. It's just that the number of jades needed to be consumed will probably increase greatly. Yang Chuxiong clapped his hands and loudly said, the jades don't matter. As long as it can kill the enemy, we don't need to worry even if foreign forces come to Mist Source Island again. They can't sneak in, and it's even more impossible for them to kill their way in. Only this level can be regarded as impregnable. Hee hee. Tan Xiu snickered inwardly. The reason why he proposed to arrange the array with jades was actually because of his own selfishness. If he wanted to get a lot of jades, buying them with his own money was just a small way. If the country could help, the amount of jades would definitely be more than what he could get with his own money. Some people were embezzling money. But he himself was embezzling jades. Precisely speaking, it wasn't actually embezzlement, but some returns after paying. After all, he had to painstakingly arrange the array. Seeing that Yang Chuxiong was about to leave, Tan Xiu quickly stopped him and said, Division Commander Yang, can we have a private chat? I've done something on Mist Source Island and need to report it to you. Yang Chuxiong stared blankly for a moment and immediately asked the officers around him to leave. Then, he curiously asked, what did you do, Mr. Tang? There are two main things, said Tan Xiu. First, I've dealt with all the forces who sneaked into Mist Source Island. Except for the pyramid who lost a group of people and was expelled by me. I've sent my men to kill all the other forces. Hiss, Yang Chuxiong, who had been through hundreds of battles and had personally killed many people, couldn't help but gasp when he heard Tan Xiu's words. One must know. Those foreign forces had sent a lot of people to Mist Source Island. If all of them were added up, it would be at least 800, if not 1,000. This Tan Xiu was really ruthless and merciless. Also, I've encountered some thugs on Mist Source Island. When the infectious disease threatened the general public, some of them brutally killed people and even tortured them to death, said Tan Xiu again. My men also killed some of those who lost their minds, but their corpses were handled very well, leaving no traces behind. Yang Chuxiong nodded and said, that's your authority. There's indeed no need to show mercy to those thugs. We're in a crisis now, yet those people dared to commit crimes. I'll bring them to justice if I encounter them. I'm relieved since Division Commander Yang can understand, said Tan Xiu. That's right, I'm going to take my men to walk around and have a look around, so I won't be staying in the base. Just contact me directly if there's any news about the array and the jade. No problem. Yang Chuxiong happily replied. Just as Tan Xiu was about to leave, he suddenly turned his head and said, Division Commander Yang, there's something I need to tell you. When we were dealing with those foreign forces, we found that the Stygian Club's people had a conflict with the Qingyuan Group's big boss, Miao Hengfu. Miao Hengfu and many of his men were killed by the Stygian Club's people. Yang Chuxiong stared blankly and immediately let out a bitter smile. It's troublesome. Tan Xiu was surprised and asked, what kind of troublesome? Isn't he just the boss of a company? How come you, the garrison's first commander, find it troublesome? Chapter 750. Yang Chuxiong looked around and found no one around. Then, he bitterly said, Mr. Tang, you probably don't know about it yet. This Miao Hengfu has a rich background, and he's from the Mu family in the imperial capital. Now that he's killed, that person from the Mu family will never let this go. This, alas. I have some connections with some people from the Mu family. Who's that person you're talking about? Tan Xiu deliberately asked. Mu Jianhua. Yang Chuxiong replied in a low voice. You mean? Miao Hengfu's backer is Mu Jianhua. Tan Xiu was surprised. Yeah. Yang Chuxiong nodded. Mu Jianhua of the Mu family may be a good-for-nothing, but he's still a member of the Mu family, and his father is the current patriarch of the Mu family. I'm afraid it'll be very troublesome if he makes a fuss. An idiot? Tan Xiu's mouth twitched and he helplessly said, Division Commander Yang, I'll be frank with you. This idiot is actually my future father-in-law. What? Yang Chuxiong was dumbfounded. My girlfriend is Mu Weining, and her father is Mu Jianhua, said Tan Xiu. That's why this idiot is my future father-in-law. Cough, cough, Yang Chuxiong coughed twice with an awkward expression. He wished he could find a hole to bury himself in. Though he despised Mu Jianhua, he had some admiration for Tan Xiu. Yet, he dared to curse Tan Xiu's future father-in-law in front of him. This was really shameful. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, Division Commander Yang, you don't need to take it to heart. Besides, Mu Jianhua is Mu Jianhua, and my girlfriend is my girlfriend. Let's not talk about this anymore. Since the person behind the Qingyuan group is one of us, then I'll help you clean up this mess. Yang Chuxiong let out a hollow laugh and quickly said, You can do whatever you want, Mr. Tang. The Qingyuan group's business is booming on the surface, but there are some dirty businesses behind the scenes. If it wasn't for Mu, that person from the Mu family supporting us from behind, we would have dealt with Miao Hengfu a long time ago. Tan Xiu instantly understood Yang Chuxiong's meaning. A smile outlined on the corner of his mouth as he nodded and said, I see. Rest assured, Division Commander Yang. In the future, the Qingyuan group would never have anything to do with any shady business again. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Qingyuan group. When Tan Xiu arrived with Jin Shi and Xue Sha, they were stopped by several security guards before they could enter the company's gate. Even the security guards were very rude. This is my ID. Tang Xiu took out the green book and saw that the security guards' complexions greatly changed. Their attitude also took a 180-degree turn. He immediately snorted coldly and said, Don't tell anyone who we are. Continue your work. Saying. He walked inside. After entering the building at the front, Tan Xiu found two young female receptionists playing with their mobile phones at the counter, and several energetic men and women in suits gathered together to discuss something. Strange, they didn't prepare any electrostatic equipment here. Jin Shi, who was at Tan Xiu's side, couldn't help but mutter. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and came to the counter, saying, I'm from the government. I'll have to trouble you to inform the Qingyuan group's top executives to come to the conference room within half an hour. The two female receptionists observed Tan Xiu's group of three. Then, one of them shook her head and said with a charming smile, Please don't tease us, sir. We would have gotten the news long ago if someone from the government came to inspect our work. Also, our boss isn't here, so you can wait for him to come back. Gather all the Qingyuan group's top executives except your boss in the conference room, said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. This is my ID. If you obstruct my work, it will be considered an illegal act. The two female receptionists looked at the green book. They didn't know what this ID meant. After hesitating for a while, the woman said, We don't have the right to do so, sir. How about we inform Chief Li? He's the vice president of our Qingyuan group, so you can talk to him first. All right. Tan Xiu nodded. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man in his 40s came to the hall on the first floor with two youths. After observing Tan Xiu's group of three, he said, I'm Li Hemming, the vice president of the Qingyuan group. May I ask who you are? After Tan Xiu showed him the ID, he said in a deep voice, You should know what this ID of mine represents since you can become the vice president of the Qingyuan group. Now, I order you to immediately summon all the Qingyuan group's top executives to the conference room for a meeting. As for your boss, you don't need to wait for him. Li Hemming's complexion was a bit pale. Although he had never seen the green book, he had heard about what the three words on it represented. After quickly nodding, he walked a few steps to the side and called his big boss, Miao Hengfu's number. What gave him a headache was that his big boss didn't answer at all. In the conference room on the third floor, nearly everyone except the Qingyuan group's big boss, Miao Hengfu, had arrived within half an hour. More than 20 people were sitting on both sides of the long conference table with indifferent expressions on their faces. Usually, only the big boss was qualified to sit on the chairs, whispering to each other. Is everyone here, Li Hemming? Asked Tan Xiu as soon as the time was up. Yes, everyone is here, answered Li Hemming. Tan Xiu slightly nodded and his sharp eyes swept over the faces of more than 20 people. Then, he said in a deep voice, I'll make an announcement now. The Qingyuan Group's boss, Miao Hengfu, his only son, Miao Wenlei, and dozens of security guards of the security department have all died due to a conflict with some foreign forces. I've investigated Miao Hengfu's relatives. Aside from his only son, Miao Wenlei, he only has parents who are over 70 years old. His parents are obviously not suitable to take over the Qingyuan Group's business, so you now face two choices. The first one is to resign and leave the Qingyuan Group to find a better job elsewhere. Also, look for a new investor to convert Miao Hengfu's shares into cash and let his parents inherit it. Li Hemming was dumbfounded, as were the more than 20 Qingyuan Group's top executives in the conference room. They stared at Tan Xiu, dumbfounded and tongue-tied, with disbelief in their eyes. Their big boss is dead. The news was like a clap of thunder in everyone's ears, leaving them at a loss for a while. After a long while, Li Hemming's lips squirmed and he said in a low voice, Mr. Tang, the entire Qingyuan Group belongs to our boss. He owns 100% of the shares. Tan Xiu had already sent some people to investigate this matter before he came to the Qingyuan Group, so how could he not know about it at this moment? Looking at everyone's shocked faces, Tan Xiu indifferently said, since Miao Hengfu is dead and his parents are not suitable to run the Qingyuan Group, then I'll make the decision. I'll give some money to Miao Hengfu's parents and let the state settle them down so that they can enjoy their old age in peace. The state will own a part of the Qingyuan Group's shares, 51%. Apart from Li Hemming, the rest of you will each get 1% of the shares. The remaining 25% of the shares will be invested into the Qingyuan Group. After saying that, Tan Xiu asked in a deep voice, do you have any objections? Li Hemming's pupils shrunk and a glint flashed in his eyes. At this moment, how could he not see that Tan Xiu was representing the state to occupy Miao Hengfu's business? Upon seeing the excitement on the faces of the other senior executives who got 1% of the shares, Li Hemming's heart tightened. He looked at Tan Xiu and said, Mr. Tang, then they have 22 people in total, so they will get 22% of the shares, said Tan Xiu. You will get 3% of the shares and will be the general manager of the Qingyuan Group from now on. As for your annual salary, it will remain unchanged, 3%. Nearly 100 million yuan. Li Hemming was delighted and nodded, I have no problem with that. Tan Xiu nodded in satisfaction. He then took out his communicator in front of everyone, dialed Mu Weiniing's cell number, and directly pressed the speakerphone button. Hello, Tan Xiu. Mu Weiniing's voice came from the communicator and was clearly heard by everyone in the conference room. Weiniing, how much money can your company take out now? Asked Tan Xiu. What I mean is, how much spare money can you take out without affecting the normal operation of your company? Mu Weiniing hesitated for a moment before saying, the clients you introduced to me last time have increased the scale of my company by more than 10 times, and the income is also very considerable. I've checked the financial situation a few days ago, so it shouldn't be a problem for me to take out 250 million yuan, 250 million, then, said Tan Xiu. I'll introduce another business to you. You should know about the Mist Source Islands Qingyuan Group, right? Your father, Mu Jianhua, has a deep relationship with the big boss of the Qingyuan Group, Miao Hengfu. Now that Miao Hengfu and his son are dead, you can use 250 million yuan to invest in the Qingyuan Group. You'll own 25% of the shares. What? Miao Hengfu is dead. Mu Weiniing's voice came again. That's right. He's dead, said Tan Xiu. I'm handling this matter on behalf of the government. But my father. Mu Weiniing quickly said. Tang Xiu interrupted her and said, I don't care about your dad, but I can take care of you. Come to Mist Source Island in person later. The Qingyuan Group's vice president, Li Hemming, as well as the Mist Source Islands officials, will fully cooperate with you to carry out the equity change. This, all right. Tan Xiu hung up the phone and looked at the shocked faces of more than 20 Qingyuan Group's top executives. Then, he lightly said, I don't need to explain it too clearly. I'm sure you all know who Mu Weiniing is. Miao Hengfu may be dead, but the Qingyuan group won't fall. I hope that you won't speak about this matter before the equity change is completed. Even if the equity change is completed, you'd better remember what you can and cannot say. Else, I'll take back everything you own, and I'll even make you pay more. We understand. The faces of more than 20 top executives of the company slightly changed as they nodded with a solemn expression. Chapter 751. After solving the Qingya Group's problem, Tan Xiu directly chose to leave. The reason why the Chinese leaders sent him to Mist Source Island this time was very clear: to solve the darkening virus problem and maintain the safety of Mist Source Island's people. Of these two problems, the first one was handled by divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu, so he didn't need to worry too much about it. As for the second one, he had solved most of it, which was to clean up the foreign forces. What he needed to do next was to maintain the safety of Mist Source Island's people and deal with all those who took advantage of the situation or maliciously spread extreme propaganda, causing panic among the people. Most importantly, all the criminals who caused the riots must be dealt with in this desperate situation. It could be said that Mist Source Island's police system had been completely paralyzed. The policemen infected with the darkening virus were already too busy to take care of themselves, so how could they have the time to worry about the people's safety? Hence, there was no way to count on them. Boss, I feel that something is amiss. At the entrance of the Qingyuan group, Jin Shi frowned and spoke to Tan Xiu the moment he sat in the car. What's wrong? Asked Tan Xiu. It took us 2 hours and 45 minutes to leave the Qingyuan group, boss, said Jin Shi. We were in the conference room for 2 hours. We weren't infected by the darkening virus because we're cultivators and can release our true essence to block the virus. The top executives of the Qingyuan group all showed signs of being infected, but they didn't use static electricity to suppress the darkening virus in their bodies. I think there's something wrong somewhere. Tan Xiu's expression suddenly changed after hearing this. He had ignored this problem just now and didn't expect that Jin Shi would notice it. After secretly blaming himself, Tan Xiu immediately said, "Contact Li Hemming and tell him to come here at once." Understood. Jin Shi replied. A few minutes later, Li Hemming arrived in a hurry. His eyes flashed when he saw the license plate of the car Tan Xiu took: white background, black characters, and red letters. It was a military license plate. Li Hemming's eyes fell on Tan Xiu inside the window. His posture instantly turned lower as he respectfully came outside the window and bowed, saying, "What's your order, Mr. Tang?" Tan Xiu asked, "What's going on with this Qingyuan group? Everyone was infected with the darkening virus. Why didn't anyone use electrostatic suppression?" Li Hemming hurriedly said, "There is an electrostatic discharge device installed in the company. This is boss. This is something Miao Hengfu bought from a group of foreigners. The static electricity covers the entire company, so all the employees in the company don't need anything that produces static electricity." Electrostatic discharger. Tan Xiu was shocked. He didn't expect such a thing to exist. After pondering for a moment, he immediately asked, "What's the maximum coverage area of this electrostatic discharger?" "What I mean is, can it cover the entire Mist Source Island?" I asked Miao Hengfu about this issue. Li Hemming shook his head and said, "The electrostatic discharger used by our Qingyuan group should be the most effective one in the world, yet it can only cover a radius of a few kilometers. In the past, this kind of electrostatic discharger would be useless. Not only would it not be of much help to humans, but it would also cause great harm to human health." Tan Xiu nodded without a word. He felt that what Li Hemming said made sense. After pondering for a moment, he slowly asked, "Can we still buy this electrostatic discharger?" "I don't know." Li Hemming shook his head and said, "Miao Hengfu was the one who bought the electrostatic discharger, and he seems to have spent a lot of money on it. However, I know their origin. They are from the Micronesian Federation." Tan Xiu nodded helplessly. He knew this group of people, but they had been slaughtered by the Stygian Club's people. How could he still buy electrostatic dischargers from them? As he thought about it, he recalled that divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu said that there would be some progress on the antidote by noon tomorrow. Tan Xiu silently suppressed the idea of buying electrostatic dischargers on a large scale. Is there a relatively quiet place in the company? I want to settle some people here. How many people exactly, Mr. Tang? Asked Li Hemming. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he finally shook his head and said, forget it. In any case, the antidote for the darkening virus can be researched tomorrow. There's no need to go through so much trouble. He originally wanted to ask Tang Han to bring her confidants here, but he eventually gave up on it. He didn't want outsiders to know about his relationship with Tang Han for the time being. The Qingyuan group had too many people, and it would be easy to expose their relationship. Tang Manor Martial Arts School. Tan Xiu left the Qingyuan group and went straight to this place. Early the next morning, Mo and the others hurried over and informed them that they had eliminated all the remaining people from the foreign forces. It's peaceful now, boss. With a relaxed expression, Mo smilingly looked at Tan Xiu, who was sitting on the sofa and smoking. The peace you're referring to is the result of eliminating the foreign forces, said Tan Xiu indifferently. But the real peace is far from being achieved. The darkening virus has infected all the people in the entire Mist Source Island, causing great panic among the people. Some people with bad intentions have fanned the flames and spread the public opinion that the world should be destroyed. Some people have even done a lot of extreme things during this period. Besides, although the darkening virus has been temporarily suppressed, it will cause panic among the people as long as it hasn't been solved. The longer it drags on, the more chaos it will cause. You mean? Asked Mo hesitantly. The 12 of us will be divided into 6 teams. 4 of them will rush to the 4 major cities of Python City, Wolfpack City, Twin Brook City, and Mixed Summit City to maintain the order of the residents, said Tan Xiu. Those who have bad intentions or do extreme things will be executed on the spot. The other 2 teams will have to work hard to patrol the villages and towns of Mist Source Island. All right. Mo's reply was very straightforward. My men and I will also join, little brother, said Tang Han hurriedly. Besides, we're very familiar with Mist Source Island, so we can help you in the operation. No problem, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You no longer have the threat of the darkening virus, so it's not a big problem for you to help us. However, I need all of you to change your makeup so that no one can recognize you as members of the Tang Manor Martial School. How do we change our makeup? Asked Tang Han. Don't worry. Tan Xiu said with a smile. I have a way. Disguise and disguise. It was a piece of cake for Mo and the others. In their earlier years of training abroad, they had long mastered the use of these methods. Mist Source Island. The stability of the 4 major cities was indeed not good. Although the initial small-scale unrest was suppressed by the police with an iron fist, there were still many people with ulterior motives who were ready to destroy the state of affairs. Even some extreme people were sharpening their knives. They couldn't bear the virus infection and death, so they brandished their knives at others. Now, there was no large-scale unrest, but there was a lot of chaos in small areas. Twin Brook City. Huimin Supermarket in a district. Dozens of youths with knives and sticks in their hands smashed the supermarket's door and swarmed inside. Although there wasn't much cash in the supermarket's cashier, the dazzling array of goods in the supermarket was very valuable. These people crazily scrambled to find high-priced goods and filled their pockets. All of you, stop. On the stairs on the 2nd floor, a middle-aged woman holding a mobile phone shouted. Her face was full of anger and panic, but she didn't dare to go down the stairs. The dozens of youths ignored her. They were still unscrupulously looting and scrambling, turning the supermarket on the 1st floor into a mess. 4 or 5 minutes later, 5 men rushed from the outside with sticks in their hands. The middle-aged man leading them was full of anger. He rushed out from the inside and chopped down the youth who was about to return with a full load. Another knife was directly aimed at the neck of another youth who was caught off guard. Put them down. Whoever dares to rob this father of this supermarket, this father will kill him. The middle-aged man wiped the blood that splashed on his face and shouted loudly. In a flash, the dozens of youths in the supermarket stopped their actions and all quieted down. But just 5 or 6 seconds later, a youth shouted, "Why are you afraid of them? There are only 5 of them and we have dozens of people. If we kill them, we can move all the things in this supermarket to our own house. Kill them." A chaotic battle broke out in an extremely short period of time. The middle-aged man and his 4 companions were chased and beaten out of the supermarket. At this moment, the 4 of them were all riddled with injuries. One of them was even more seriously injured. In the end, he fell at the entrance of the supermarket. What greeted him was a group of people beating him to death. Creak, an off-road vehicle stopped nearby. 2 robust middle-aged men jumped out of the vehicle and dashed towards the people who were attacking people. Violent auras and powerful combat power. Before the group of people could react, 4 or 5 of them had already been killed by the middle-aged man. Kill those 2 bastards. Dozens of youths realized how powerful the 2 men were. They roared and bolstered their courage. They raised the weapons in their hands and rushed toward the 2 men. Puff, 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 what did it mean to be a tiger in a flock of sheep? The scene in front of them was that the 2 middle-aged men grabbed the machetes on the ground and chopped those youths as if they were chopping melons. Their speed and strength were extremely fast. In just a few breaths, less than 10 of the dozens of youths were still alive. The devil! Run! Run! The rest of the youths didn't panic. They no longer had the slightest strength to fight. They dropped the weapons in their hands and even the things they robbed from the supermarket and ran away. However, their speed was too slow. The 2 middle-aged men were merciless and eventually caught up with all the youths and killed them all. Are they still human? At the corner of the street more than 100 meters away from the Huiman supermarket, the 4 middle-aged men who were previously chopped looked at the scene in front of them, dumbfounded. Dozens of young and strong lads. All of them were slaughtered. Moreover, they were so fast. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.